The divorce papers were waiting beside my breakfast. Vivian Sterling had placed them perfectly in the center of the dining table, aligned with the edge, as if our marriage were another contract awaiting her approval. She sat across from me in a charcoal gray suit, her dark hair pulled back, her expression calm enough to frighten investors and silence entire conference rooms. 3 years of marriage, and I still couldn't always tell what she was thinking. But that morning, I knew our time was up. Vivian lifted her coffee without drinking it. "You're late." I checked the clock on the wall. "By 43 seconds. You're usually early." I was packing. Her fingers tightened slightly around the cup. It was a tiny movement. Most people wouldn't have noticed. I noticed everything about Vivian. That had been my first mistake. I pulled out the chair and sat down. "Did the lawyers send the final version?" "It arrived last night." "And you already reviewed it?" "Twice." "Of course you did." Her eyes narrowed. "Is that criticism?" "No. Admiration." Vivian looked away first. That almost made me smile. Almost. I had spent the last 3 years making her look away whenever I got too close to the truth. It was the nearest thing we had to flirting. She pushed the documents toward me. "The terms are the same as the original agreement. You'll receive the Manhattan apartment on West 72nd Street, the investment account established in your name, and the final payment specified in Section 11. "I don't want the apartment." Her gaze snapped back to mine. "What?" "I don't want the apartment. It was included in the agreement." "I know. You're entitled to it." "I know that too." Her voice became colder. "Then why are we discussing it?" "Because I'm declining it." Vivian set down her coffee. The porcelain clicked against the saucer. "You cannot decline assets simply because you feel uncomfortable accepting them." "I'm not uncomfortable." "Then take them." "No." For a moment, we simply stared at each other. 3 years ago, when Vivian had first offered me the contract, she'd said that marriage to her would require discipline, discretion, and obedience to agreed terms. I had handled the first two reasonably well. The third had always been complicated. She leaned back in her chair. "Ethan, the apartment is worth more than $2 million. I have a place." "You rented a place?" "Yes." "When?" "Last week." Her expression did not change, but the room seemed to. "Without telling me." "It didn't seem necessary." "You arranged to move out before the contract ended." "The contract ends today, at midnight." "I didn't realize you expected me to wait until 11:59 and carry my suitcases out like Cinderella." "This isn't a joke." "I know. That was the problem." Nothing about that morning felt funny. Vivian opened the folder and turned several pages with sharp, controlled movements. "The account remains yours. I'll keep the account and the final payment." "I don't need it." Her eyes lifted slowly. "Explain." I exhaled. "I've been earning a salary from Sterling Technologies for 3 years. I have savings. I have a new job lined up." "You accepted another position?" "Yes." "At which company?" "I'm not telling you." Her jaw tightened. That reaction almost hurt more than if she had smiled. "Why not?" "Because you'll buy the company." "I would not." "You once purchased an entire catering firm because they sent walnuts in your salad after you specifically requested none. They endangered my health." "You're not allergic to walnuts." "They endangered my patience." Despite herself, Vivian's lips moved, not quite a smile. Then she remembered what we were doing, and the softness disappeared. "Where are you going?" "Boston." The answer landed harder than I expected. Vivian became completely still. "Boston?" "Yes." "For the new position?" "Yes." "When do you leave?" "Tomorrow morning." "You planned all of this without saying a word." "I thought you preferred efficient transitions." "Do not tell me what I prefer." I looked down at the papers between us. That sentence could have meant many things. Vivian made sure it meant none of them. She tapped one manicured finger against the signature line. "You should read the agreement." I read the original. "This version contains amendments. Your lawyers wouldn't cheat me. You have too much faith in people." "No, just in you." Her hand stopped moving. I shouldn't have said it. Or maybe I should have said more things like it over the past 3 years. Maybe then we wouldn't have been sitting across from each other with a divorce contract between us and every real feeling locked behind our teeth. Vivian lowered her eyes. "Read it." I picked up the pen. "Ethan, I trust you." "That isn't the point." "What is the point?" She didn't answer. I signed the first page, then the second. By the third, Vivian's breathing had changed. Barely, but I heard it. When I reached the final page, she said, "You haven't asked for anything." "I'm not supposed to." "You can negotiate." "I don't need to." "You could request a larger settlement." "I don't want one." "You could ask for company shares." "I definitely don't want those." Her eyes flashed. "Why?" "Because every shareholder dinner I attended with you made me want to fake my own death." That happened twice. 3 times. The Zurich dinner does not count. A man explained cryptocurrency to me for 90 minutes. He was a central bank governor. He still explained it badly. Vivian stared at me, and for one brief second, we were ourselves again. Not CEO and employee. Not contract wife and contract husband, just Vivian and Ethan, arguing over nothing because neither of us knew how to speak about what mattered. Then I signed the final page. The pen made a faint scratching sound. That was all. 3 years ended in less than 30 seconds. I closed the folder and pushed it back to her. Done. Vivian looked at my signature. She didn't touch the papers. That's it. The question came out quieter than everything else she had said. I forced myself to meet her eyes. That's it. You signed without reading. I told you. I trust you. You didn't hesitate. I almost laughed. I had done nothing but hesitate for 3 years. I had hesitated outside her bedroom when she was sick and refused to admit it. I had hesitated before every business gala where I wanted to hold her hand for reasons that had nothing to do with photographers. I had hesitated on our first anniversary, standing in a jewelry store with a bracelet in my pocket before deciding gifts weren't part of the contract. I had hesitated every night I heard her walking past my room, but I hadn't hesitated that morning, because if I did, I wouldn't have been able to leave. I promised you I wouldn't make this difficult, I said. Her face became unreadable. You remember that? I remember everything you said the day we got married. Vivian's gaze dropped to the ring on my left hand. The simple platinum band had been chosen by one of her assistants. Vivian had approved it through email. She had never asked whether I liked it. I did. Far too much. I twisted the ring once, then pulled it from my finger. A pale line remained on my skin. I placed it beside the divorce papers. Vivian stared at it as if I had set down something dangerous. You can keep that. No, it has no resale value compared with the other assets. I'm not planning to sell it. Then keep it. I shouldn't. Her voice sharpened. Why? Because I loved you while wearing it. Because every time someone called you my wife, some foolish part of me believed it. Because if I took it with me, I would never stop hoping. Instead, I said, it belongs to the marriage, and the marriage belongs to the past. I looked at her carefully. There was something strange in her expression now. Not anger. Not exactly. After today, I said, yes. Vivian stood so suddenly that her chair moved backward. You're leaving now? My bags are in the car. You already removed them from your room? Yesterday. She glanced toward the hallway. I knew what she would find if she checked. A clean room, an empty closet, no books on the nightstand, no watch beside the lamp, no trace that I had slept there for 3 years, except the small dent in the pillow, which the housekeeper would erase before noon. You packed while I was at the board meeting, she said. Yes. You should have told me. You were busy. I am always busy. I know. That has never stopped you from interrupting me before. I smiled faintly. You complained every time. I complain about everyone. You're very talented at it. Ethan. There was something in the way she said my name that almost broke me. I stood. Vivian looked at me as if she had expected the conversation to continue indefinitely. As if the papers were only the opening stage of a negotiation neither of us understood. I adjusted my jacket. You have the Henderson acquisition call at 9. Thomas moved it forward because London requested an earlier time. Her eyebrows drew together. How do you know? You told me yesterday. I don't remember telling you. You were on 3 calls and arguing with the refrigerator. The refrigerator was malfunctioning. You were pressing the ice setting. It should not have made that noise. It was making ice. She folded her arms. I could see she was trying to recover the familiar shape of our life. She wanted me to remind her about her schedule, joke about her temper, and ask whether she had eaten, so I did it one last time. You also have a lunch meeting with Senator Brooks. Don't let him order for you. He'll choose something with too much salt. I'm capable of ordering my own lunch. I know, and I don't need dietary supervision. I know. Then stop looking at me like that. Like what? Like I'm incapable of functioning without you. The words hung between us. Vivian's expression shifted. I kept my voice gentle. You're capable of functioning without anyone. For some reason, that answer seemed to hurt her. She turned toward the window. Though there was nothing outside she hadn't seen 1,000 times. I suppose you're relieved. About what? Being free. I looked at her back. Vivian had worn white on our wedding day because her public relations team said it would photograph well. She hadn't smiled during the ceremony, but later, in the elevator, she had quietly adjusted my crooked tie. That single touch had kept me hopeful for months. Maybe years. I don't know yet, I said. She faced me again. That was the closest I could come to honesty without humiliating us both. Her gaze searched mine. You said you're leaving tomorrow. Where will you stay tonight? My apartment. The place you rented. Yes. Is it furnished? Mostly. Does it have security? It has a lock. That is not security. It's worked for most of human civilization. Send me the address. Her expression cooled instantly. Why? We're not married anymore. The documents haven't been filed. They will be. Vivian's hand moved toward the folder, but stopped before touching it. You assume too much. I assume your lawyers will do their jobs. They do what I tell them. That should have sounded like a simple statement. Instead, it sounded like a warning. I picked up my phone and keys. Take care of yourself. Vivian, you're saying goodbye. Yes. As if you're not coming back. I'm not. Her lips parted. The silence afterward felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. I stepped around the table. When I reached the doorway, she spoke again. Ethan, I stopped. Did you hate it? I turned. Vivian stood behind the table with the unsigned side of the divorce papers facing her and my ring between her fingers. For once, the famous Ice Queen of Sterling Technologies did not look powerful. She looked uncertain. What? Our marriage? The question stunned me. Vivian had negotiated mergers worth billions without blinking, but she couldn't look me directly in the eye while asking whether our marriage had made me miserable. I could have lied. It would have made leaving easier, but I had already lied enough. No, I said. I never hated it. Then why do you look so relieved to leave? I don't. You signed immediately. Because staying would have been worse. Her face hardened. Worse than what? I nearly told her. Worse than sitting across from you every morning and pretending I don't love you. Worse than being introduced as your husband and knowing the title has an expiration date. Worse than waiting for you to ask me to stay when you never will. But Vivian had given me 3 years of security when I needed it most. She had protected my younger sister's medical privacy, promoted me based on my work instead of our arrangement, and defended me from people who assumed I had married her for money. She didn't know me love. I would not punish her for failing to give what she had never promised. Worse than overstaying my welcome, I said. Her eyes flashed. You were never unwelcome. That's kind of you. I'm not being kind. Then what are you being? Vivian opened her mouth. Nothing came out. I waited. For one reckless second, I believed she might say it. That she might tell me the contract had stopped being a contract. That she had ordered 2 coffees every morning because she wanted me there. That she stood outside my room sometimes because I wasn't the only one afraid to knock. But Vivian looked at the papers instead. The moment passed. I nodded. Goodbye, Vivian. I left before she could answer. My suitcase was already in the back seat of the car. I had turned in my company vehicle and ordered a cab because taking anything connected to Vivian felt dangerous. The driver loaded my bag into the trunk. As I reached for the door, I looked up at the penthouse windows. Vivian stood behind the glass. Even from the street, I knew it was her. She didn't wave. Neither did I. The car pulled away. I watched the building disappear behind us and told myself I had done the right thing. I had signed the papers, returned the ring, left the woman I loved before she could become someone I resented. It was clean, logical, exactly what Vivian would have wanted. At least, that was what I believed. Upstairs, Vivian remained beside the window until my cab vanished into traffic. Then her assistant, Claire, entered the dining room carrying a tablet. Ms. Sterling, the Henderson call begins in 12 minutes. Vivian didn't respond. Claire looked at the table. The breakfast remained untouched. The divorce papers lay beneath Vivian's hand. My ring was still caught between her fingers. Should I send the documents to legal? Claire asked carefully. Vivian looked down at my signature. Her thumb moved over the ink as though she could erase it by touching it hard enough. Ms. Sterling, Vivian's voice was quiet. He signed them. Claire hesitated. Wasn't that the plan? Vivian looked toward the empty chair across from her. For the first time in 3 years, there was no one sitting there, reminding her to drink her coffee before it went cold. Her expression cracked, only slightly, but Claire saw it. Ms. Sterling, she whispered. Are you crying? Vivian touched her cheek. She seemed surprised to find it wet. Then she looked at the ring in her hand and closed her fingers around it. No, she said. Her voice trembled. I'm not. But she didn't send the divorce papers to legal. And 12 minutes later, for the first time since becoming CEO, Vivian Sterling missed a meeting. Freedom sounded different in a cheap apartment. It sounded like the refrigerator humming too loudly because there was no one else in the room. It sounded like pipes knocking behind the wall at 2 in the morning. It sounded like my phone staying silent. I had expected freedom to feel clean. Instead, it felt unfinished. My new apartment was on the 4th floor of a brick building in Boston, 3 blocks from the Charles River and 20 minutes from my new office. It had 1 bedroom, uneven floors, and a kitchen barely large enough for 1 person. I liked it immediately. There were no assistants, no drivers, no security team checking the hallway before I left, no polished dining table where breakfast appeared every morning at exactly 7. Most importantly, there was no Vivian sitting across from me. pretending she didn't watch how much coffee I drank. I unpacked half my clothes, made scrambled eggs, and ate them standing over the sink. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, I reached for a second plate. My hand stopped halfway to the cabinet. I stared at it, pathetic. I muttered. My phone rang. I looked at the screen too quickly. Claire Dawson, not Vivian. I answered. Good morning. Claire did not return the greeting. What did you do? I leaned against the counter. That depends. Is this a personal accusation or a professional one? Both. Then I'm probably innocent. Vivian canceled 3 meetings yesterday. I looked at the clock. It was barely 8. You're calling me before breakfast to report a scheduling issue? She also fired the florist. Why? They delivered white lilies. She hates white lilies. She has never hated white lilies. She said they smell like hospital waiting rooms. When? 2 years ago. After the foundation gala, Claire went quiet. I knew that silence. It meant she was adding another item to the invisible list of things I remembered about Vivian that no one else did. Finally, she said she threw away her coffee this morning. I frowned. Was it wrong? It was exactly the same order she has every day. 2 shots of espresso, oat milk, no syrup, 1 packet of brown sugar on the side. Yes. Was it too hot? No. Too cold? No. Then what happened? She took 1 sip and said it tasted wrong. I looked at the untouched coffee maker in my own kitchen. For 3 years, I had made Vivian's first cup myself. Not because she asked, because the penthouse staff arrived later on weekends, and Vivian became hostile before caffeine. By the 2nd month of our marriage, it had become a habit. By the 2nd year, I no longer thought about it. Claire sighed. She's been in a terrible mood since you left. She's always in a terrible mood. This is different. I didn't answer. Claire lowered her voice. Did you 2 fight? No. Did you say something cruel? No. Did she? No. Then why did she stare at your empty chair for 20 minutes this morning? I closed my eyes. Claire, I'm serious. You shouldn't be telling me this. I know. We're divorced. You're not divorced yet. The papers will be filed. Vivian locked them in her desk. My eyes opened. What? She told legal they needed another review. Why? She didn't explain. That doesn't mean anything. It means she hasn't signed. The sentence landed harder than it should have. I walked to the window, though the view was only another brick building and a fire escape. She'll sign. Claire was quiet. I added, she always finishes what she starts. Maybe she didn't start this. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm asking you. I gripped the phone. The truth was, I had asked myself the same question all night. Vivian had placed the papers on the table. Vivian had reviewed the terms. Vivian had reminded me that the contract ended. But she had never actually said she wanted the divorce. I had assumed, and Vivian had let me. That was how we had survived 3 years together. One of us made an assumption. The other hid behind it. She'll sign. I repeated. Claire made a frustrated sound. You're both impossible. I'm beginning a new job today. At Sterling's biggest competitor. They are not Sterling's biggest competitor. They could be, not with their current infrastructure. So you admit you're helping them compete. I'm helping them stop losing customer data every time someone updates the mobile app. Claire paused. You sound happy. I am. The lie came easily. That's what she said. My chest tightened. What? She asked whether you looked happy when you left. What did you tell her? That you looked like a man trying very hard not to look back. I said nothing. Claire's voice softened. Ethan, what happened between you two? Nothing. That's the problem, isn't it? Before I could answer, a sharp knock sounded at my door. I need to go. Who is it? I don't know. Don't open it. You sound like Vivian. Someone has to. I ended the call before she could say more. The knocking came again. I crossed the apartment and looked through the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, holding a paper grocery bag against her hip. She had curly red hair, a yellow sweater, and an impatient expression. I opened the door halfway. Yes, you're Ethan. That depends who's asking. Apartment 4B. Nora Mitchell. She lifted the bag. You left this downstairs. I looked inside. Bread, milk, pasta, tomatoes, and a box of tea. These aren't mine. They have your apartment number on the receipt. I took the receipt. My name was printed at the top, so was my new address. I already knew who had sent it before I reached the bottom. Sterling Private Residence Services. Nora leaned closer. Fancy grocery company. It's complicated. Rich ex. I looked at her. She smiled. I watched television. She's not my ex. Current wife. Also complicated. That usually means current wife. I took the bag. Thank you. Nora nodded toward my empty living room. You just moved in? Last night. I'm making chili tonight. I always make too much. You can have some. That's kind. It's not kindness. It's self-defense. If I eat all of it, I'll regret it. I appreciate the honesty. She walked back toward her apartment, then turned. Your complicated wife has good taste in bread. The second she disappeared, my phone rang again. This time, Vivian's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it until the 4th ring. Then I answered. Hello. Silence. I could hear faint movement on the other end. Vivian, you received the groceries? It was not a question. Yes. The building's delivery system is inefficient. You sent groceries to test the delivery system? I sent them because your kitchen was empty. You've never seen my kitchen. I saw the listing. Of course she had. How did you find the listing? You gave the address to Sterling Security when you terminated your residence access. I gave it for forwarding documents. Yes, not so you could investigate the apartment. I didn't investigate it. You found the listing. That was publicly available information. You sent someone to check the locks, didn't you? A pause. The front entrance is not secure. I laughed despite myself. What did you do? Nothing. Vivian, I requested an independent safety assessment. You sent a security consultant to my building. He happened to be nearby. You arranged it. The distinction is irrelevant. I set the grocery bag on the counter. You can't do this. Do what? Keep managing my life. I sent bread. You sent surveillance disguised as carbohydrates. It was not surveillance. Did the consultant take pictures? He took standard assessment photos. Vivian, the fire escape is accessible from the alley. It's a fire escape. That's its purpose. Your bedroom window does not have reinforced glass. I don't need reinforced glass. You lived in a penthouse with reinforced glass for 3 years. I also lived with 6 security cameras and a man named Victor following me to the pharmacy. Victor was assigned to you after the threat against the company. The threat was an angry shareholder with a blog. He posted your photo. He drew devil horns on it. That indicated hostility. I rubbed my forehead. Talking to her felt so normal that for several dangerous seconds, I forgot we had ended our marriage the day before. Then I remembered the ring on the dining table. My voice changed. You need to stop. Vivian became quiet. No more groceries. I said, no consultants. No security checks. No asking Claire whether I'm happy. Claire must have told her, or Vivian must have known I would figure it out. I didn't ask Claire to call you, but you asked her about me. You were my husband for 3 years. Were. The word cut through the conversation. Vivian inhaled slowly. The papers haven't been filed. Claire told me. She shouldn't have. Why haven't you filed them? They require review. You reviewed them twice. There may be errors. Your legal department wrote them. Legal departments make mistakes, not yours. Everyone makes mistakes. I leaned against the counter. Did I make one? The question escaped before I could stop it. Vivian said nothing. My heart began beating faster. By signing. I clarified. Still nothing. I hated how much I wanted her to answer. Finally, she said, you didn't read the amendments. That's not what I asked. I have a meeting. Vivian, I need to go. Then why did you call? Another pause. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. To confirm you received the groceries. I almost told her I missed her. Instead, I said, I received them. Good. Thank you. You're welcome. Neither of us ended the call. I could hear her breathing. She could probably hear mine. For 3 years, we had been able to sit in silence without discomfort. In the penthouse, silence had been our safest language. Over the phone, it felt intimate. Too intimate. A woman's voice called from the hallway outside my apartment. Ethan, I forgot to ask if you eat beef. It was Nora. Vivian heard her. Who is that? The temperature of her voice dropped 10 degrees. My neighbor, the woman from the hallway? I straightened. How do you know she was in the hallway? The consultant mentioned someone delivered the groceries to your door. The consultant is reporting my visitors? He was reporting a security concern. Nora is 5'4" and carrying tomatoes. Anyone can carry tomatoes. I covered my eyes with one hand. This conversation is unbelievable. Does she often enter your apartment? I moved in yesterday. That did not answer the question. No, she does not often enter my apartment. Does she intend to? Why do you care? The silence that followed was different. Not empty. Cornered. I could almost see Vivian sitting behind her desk, holding the phone too tightly and refusing to name the feeling making her unreasonable. Because, she said, you don't know her. That's generally how meeting people works. She may be dangerous. She invited me to eat chili. So she is already inviting you to dinner. It's not a date. You sound defensive. You sound jealous. The words came out before I could soften them. Vivian went completely silent. I had never called her jealous before. I had seen it, occasionally, at galas when women touched my arm, at company events when someone asked whether our marriage was open. Once, when an investor's daughter slipped her phone number into my coat pocket, Vivian had reassigned the investor's entire portfolio to another division. She claimed it was strategic restructuring. I had never challenged her. Now there was no contract left to protect. Are you? I asked. No. The answer came too quickly. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Of course not. I'm concerned about your judgment. My judgment led me to marry you. That was a contractual decision. Exactly, she exhaled sharply. I have to go. You said that 2 minutes ago. This time I mean it. Goodbye. Vivian. She hung up without returning it. I stood in the kitchen staring at the phone. Then Nora knocked again. I opened the door. She raised her eyebrows. Everything okay? Yes. You look like someone threatened you. My wife sent bread. Nora considered that. Is the bread poisoned? No. Then I'm missing something. So am I. She leaned against the doorframe. Beef or no beef? Beef is fine. 7 o'clock. I'll bring wine. Good. Your wife can send it. I laughed. For the first time since leaving New York. It felt real. A small apartment. A neighbor inviting me to dinner. A new job waiting. A life that belonged entirely to me. I should have felt relieved. But when I looked at the grocery bag, I noticed Vivian had included the exact tea I drank before bed. She had never asked what brand I liked. I didn't know she had noticed. That thought followed me all the way to my new office. My first day at Mercer Systems was refreshingly ordinary. No one knew me as Vivian Sterling's husband. No one stared at my left hand. No one invited me to private dinners hoping I would pass information to my wife. My new manager, Daniel Harper, gave me a security badge and pointed toward a desk near the windows. We're informal here, he said. No assistants. No executive dining room. No one will iron your shirts. No one ironed my shirts before. Daniel looked at my jacket. Someone definitely ironed that. I thought of Mrs. Alvarez, the penthouse housekeeper, who had cried when I told her I was leaving. Fair point. Daniel handed me a laptop. We hired you because you understand complex systems. I understand broken systems. Even better, I spent most of the morning reviewing their infrastructure. By lunch, I had identified 12 problems. By 3, 27. By 5. Daniel was staring at the notes on my screen. Are you sure Sterling let you leave voluntarily? The question caught me off guard. I wasn't in their engineering division. You were on the strategic architecture team. I advised senior leadership. You advised Vivian Sterling. The way he said her name reminded me that to the rest of the world, she was still a legend. Cold. Brilliant. Impossible. He lowered his voice. What is she actually like? I stared at the code on my screen. She hated thunder but refused to admit it. She always ate the strawberry last when someone brought her fruit. She read mystery novels on flights and hid them inside financial magazines. She became unusually quiet whenever someone mentioned parents. She said she didn't like dogs, but once canceled a dinner because she found an injured golden retriever outside the office. She's difficult, I said. Daniel grinned. That's disappointing. I hoped you'd say she sleeps in a glass coffin. Only on weekends. My phone vibrated. A message from Claire. She found your notebook. My stomach tightened. I typed back. What notebook? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared, then appeared again, the one from the kitchen drawer. I knew exactly which one she meant. It was a small black notebook I had started during the first month of our marriage. At first, it contained practical information, Vivian's schedule, medication instructions, emergency contacts, food preferences, the names of board members she trusted, and the ones she only pretended to trust. Over time, the entries changed. Vivian gets headaches when she skips lunch. She hates being asked if she is tired. She likes the old jazz station when she thinks no one is listening. Do not mention December 14th. She sleeps better when the hallway light is left on. And, on one page I had written during a particularly stupid, lonely night, I think I am falling in love with my wife. I stood so quickly that my chair rolled backward. Daniel looked over. Everything okay? Yes. It wasn't. I stepped into an empty conference room and called Claire. She answered immediately. Tell me she didn't read it. Claire sighed. She read it. All of it. I don't know. Where is she? In her office. What is she doing? Nothing. That's not helpful. She has been sitting there for 20 minutes holding the notebook. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. Why was she in the kitchen drawer? She was looking for the tea instructions. The tea instructions? She said the tea at breakfast tasted wrong. I closed my eyes. Of course, Vivian had searched for the notebook because I used to write down everything, and now she had found the one thing I never intended her to know. Did she say anything? I asked. She asked when you wrote the first entry. What did you tell her? That I didn't know. Good. She also asked why you had a page listing every time she had a migraine. I stayed silent. Claire's voice softened. Ethan, there are 23 dates. I know. You kept track for 3 years. She wouldn't. She asked me another question. I waited. Claire hesitated. She asked when you started loving her. My throat tightened. What did you say? That she should ask you? No. Yes. Claire, you both spent 3 years acting like emotional cowards. I'm done helping. The line went quiet for a moment. Then I heard a door open in the background. Claire whispered, she's coming. Don't give her the phone. I'm not. Claire. A different voice came through. Ethan. Vivian. I gripped the phone. Hello. You left something here. Her voice was controlled, but not steady. The notebook. Yes, you can throw it away. I'm not going to throw it away. You shouldn't have read it. You left it in my home. It was my home too. The words slipped out. Vivian went quiet. Then she said, you wrote that you loved me. There was no escape from the sentence. No joke sharp enough to cut around it. No contract clause to hide behind. I looked through the conference room glass. People walked past carrying laptops and coffee, unaware that my entire former life had just opened inside a kitchen drawer. It was private. I said, that isn't a denial. No. When did it happen? I don't know. You wrote the entry 11 months after our wedding. You memorized the date? I read it. That isn't what I asked. She inhaled. I remember dates. So do I. I noticed. I heard paper moving. She was turning pages. January 6th, she read. Vivian pretended she wasn't sick. Left soup outside her door. I remembered that night. She had refused to let me in. The next morning, the empty bowl had been outside my room. February 19th, she continued. She fell asleep in the car. Told Victor to drive around the block twice so she could rest. Vivian. March 4th, she smiled at the dog in Central Park. Stop. Why? Because those things were not meant for you. They were all about me. That doesn't mean they belong to you. Her voice dropped. Did you love me the whole time? I rested one hand against the conference table. Yes. The word felt like stepping off a roof. There was silence on the other end. Then Vivian asked, why didn't you tell me? I almost laughed. Because you made me sign a contract promising not to. That clause prohibited emotional claims that might compromise the arrangement. That is exactly what love does. You could have said something. You could have too. She stopped breathing for a second. I heard it. What does that mean? She asked. It means you're the one holding the notebook. You tell me. Another long silence. Then Claire's voice sounded faintly in the background. Vivian, the board is waiting. Vivian ignored her. Are you going to dinner with your neighbor? I blinked. That's your response? Answer me. Yes. Why? Because she invited me. You have known her for less than one day. That seems to bother you. It demonstrates poor judgment. I smiled without humor. You just discovered I loved you for 3 years. And you're worried about Chili. I am processing multiple issues. That sounds very efficient. Ethan, I need to return to work. Wait. The word came quickly. Too quickly for Vivian. I didn't speak. When she continued, her voice had changed. It was softer, almost uncertain. Did leaving hurt? The question stripped away my anger. Yes. Then why did you go? Because staying hurt more. She said nothing. I continued before I lost the nerve. I was your husband in public, your employee at work, and your roommate at home. I kept waiting for one of those roles to become real. They were real, not in the way I needed. You never told me what you needed. You never asked. I heard her breathe out slowly. You're right. I froze. Vivian Sterling did not say those words often. Possibly never. What? I said you're right. I heard you. I'm just checking for a medical emergency. This is not amusing. It's a little amusing. She was quiet again. Then she said, I haven't signed the papers. I know. I don't want to. My heart stopped. But before I could answer, she added, not yet. The hope collapsed almost as quickly as it formed. Why not? I need time. For what? To understand why you left. I just told you. To understand why I let you. That answer silenced me. Claire spoke again in the background. The board has been waiting 30 minutes. Vivian replied coldly. They can continue. I smiled despite myself. You should go. No, you have a company to run. And you have dinner with a stranger. She has a name. I know. That made me pause. How? The security report. Of course. Vivian continued. Nora Mitchell, 32, pediatric nurse. No criminal record. You ran a background check on my neighbor? It was preliminary. Vivian, she is financially stable. That's reassuring. She has received 2 parking tickets. I'll be cautious. This is not a joke. I know. For the first time since the call began, I heard something in her voice that sounded almost helpless. I don't know how to do this, she said. My anger disappeared. Do what? She didn't answer directly. Your chair was empty this morning. I closed my eyes. The coffee tasted wrong. I said nothing. The apartment is too quiet. My hand tightened around the phone. Vivian's voice lowered to a whisper. I thought I wanted the contract to end. And now, I don't know what I want. That was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. I wanted to tell her I would come back. I wanted to return to New York, take the notebook from her hands, and explain every entry. I wanted to believe confusion was the same as love, but I had spent 3 years surviving on small signs and unfinished sentences. I couldn't do it anymore. Figure it out, I said gently. Ethan, figure out whether you miss me or whether you just miss having someone manage your life. That isn't fair. No, it isn't. You know I don't like change. I know everything you don't like. The sentence hurt us both. I continued. What I don't know is whether you ever liked me. Vivian went silent. That was answer enough. I have to go, I said. This time, she didn't stop me. I ended the call and stood alone in the conference room until my breathing returned to normal. That evening, Nora brought over chili in a chipped blue pot. She talked about her hospital, her brother's terrible band, and the landlord's obsession with recycling rules. I listened. I laughed. I drank 2 glasses of wine. It was the most ordinary dinner I had experienced in years. And halfway through it, my phone lit up with a message from Vivian. I am not filing the papers. I stared at the screen. A second message appeared. Not until we talk in person. Then a third. Do not let Nora stay too late. I laughed so suddenly that Nora stopped eating. What? I turned the phone face down. My complicated wife. Is she still your wife? I looked at the message again. Legally, yes. Emotionally, I had no idea. She hasn't decided. I said. Nora lifted her wine glass. That sounds exhausting. You have no idea. Across the table, my phone vibrated one more time. This message was only 3 words. I miss you. I stared at it until the screen went dark. For 3 years, I had waited for Vivian Sterling to say something real. Now that she finally had, I wasn't sure whether it was enough. But in New York, inside the penthouse kitchen, Vivian sat alone with my notebook open in front of her. She read the final page again. I think I am falling in love with my wife. Then she picked up the unsigned divorce agreement. For several seconds, she looked at my name. After that, she tore the first page cleanly in half. Vivian arrived in Boston on a Tuesday morning and frightened my new receptionist before 9. I knew because Daniel walked into my office carrying 2 coffees and wearing the expression of a man who had just witnessed a hostile corporate takeover. Your wife is here. I stopped typing. What? Vivian Sterling. I know who my wife is. Because she's currently standing in the lobby, making everyone question their career choices. I looked past him toward the glass wall. From my desk, I could see the far end of the office. Vivian stood beside the reception counter in a black coat, one hand resting on the handle of a small suitcase. Her dark hair fell over one shoulder, and her expression was calm enough to suggest she hadn't taken an early flight from New York to confront the husband who had left her. Claire stood beside her, holding a tablet and looking tired. 2 members of our executive team had already found reasons to walk past reception. Daniel leaned closer. She asked the receptionist where your office was. That seems normal. She said it like she was asking where we kept the emergency exits. I stood. Daniel handed me one of the coffees. For courage. I don't need courage. You married Vivian Sterling. Contractually, that doesn't improve the story. I set the coffee down and walked toward the lobby. Vivian saw me immediately. Her gaze moved over me from head to toe, pausing briefly at my face as if checking for damage. I stopped several feet away. What are you doing here? Good morning to you too. Good morning. What are you doing here? Claire raised her hand slightly. For the record, I advised her to call first. Vivian did not look at her. I called. Once. At 6:12 in the morning. You were awake. I was asleep. You read the message. I read it after waking up. You didn't respond. It said, we need to talk. That isn't a message. It's a threat. Several employees slowed as they passed. Vivian glanced around the lobby. Is there somewhere private? My office. No. I frowned. Why not? It has glass walls. So does every office here. That is a terrible design decision. It encourages transparency. It encourages eavesdropping. Daniel, who was still standing behind me, lifted his coffee. She has a point. I turned to him. Daniel, I'll disappear. He walked away without disappearing at all. He simply moved 10 feet to the left and pretended to examine a printer. Vivian tightened her grip on the suitcase. Your apartment. I'm working. I'll wait. You flew here to sit in my apartment? I flew here to speak to you. About the divorce? Her face changed, only slightly, but the cold confidence weakened. No, that single word caught me off guard. Claire looked at Vivian. So did I. Then what? Vivian's eyes moved toward the people pretending not to listen. Not here. I lowered my voice. You cannot appear in my workplace without warning and expect me to leave. I didn't ask you to leave. You brought a suitcase. I have meetings in Boston. Claire coughed. Vivian looked at her. Claire examined her tablet. One meeting. With whom? I asked. Vivian answered. Sterling Boston Operations. There is no Boston Operations office. There will be. You opened an office? I authorized a preliminary expansion assessment. When? Last night. You created a business reason to come here. It was already under consideration. Claire shook her head almost imperceptibly. I looked at Vivian. This is insane. Her expression hardened. I didn't come here to argue. That would be more believable if you hadn't brought 3 attorneys' worth of energy into my lobby. I did not bring an attorney, yet. Her lips pressed together. I knew that look. Vivian was trying not to say something cruel. 3 years ago, she would have said it anyway. Now she took a breath. I would like to speak to you after work. I have plans. With Nora? Her voice sharpened around the name. I crossed my arms. Why? Answer the question. That sounds jealous. I am not jealous. You flew 200 miles and opened a fictional office after I had dinner with another woman. It is not fictional. There are budget documents. Claire quietly said. There are now. Vivian closed her eyes for half a second. I nearly smiled. You can stay at a hotel. I said, I wasn't asking to stay with you. Good. The word came out too quickly. Vivian's eyes narrowed. I booked a hotel. Which one? The Langham. That's 30 minutes from my apartment. 22 without traffic. You checked. I check everything. I remember. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The lobby noise continued around us. But all I could hear was the memory of her message. I miss you. She had not mentioned it. Neither had I. Claire stepped forward. Ethan, she hasn't slept. Vivian turned sharply. Claire, she hasn't eaten either. I had coffee. That is not food. It contained oat milk. Claire looked at me. I understood the appeal immediately. The familiar impulse to take care of Vivian rose before I could stop it. What time was your flight? I asked. 6:30. Did you eat before boarding? I wasn't hungry. You're never hungry when you're upset. I am not upset. You opened an office overnight. That was strategic planning. I sighed. There's a diner downstairs. I don't eat at diners. You ate pancakes at one in Vermont. That was during a snowstorm. You ordered seconds. The first portion was insufficient. You poured maple syrup on bacon. She glanced around quickly, as though I had exposed confidential information. You said you would never mention that. We're divorced. I'm free to reveal your crimes. We are not divorced. The words came out immediately. The lobby seemed to become quieter. Vivian stared at me. I stared back. She lowered her voice. You signed. I didn't. That doesn't make this a marriage. Legally, it does. Is that all you care about? Her expression faltered. No. My heartbeat changed. She looked toward the elevator. Breakfast, she said. Then you can return to work. You don't give me permission anymore. I'm aware. That sounded like permission. It was a request. You're bad at those. I'm learning. Claire looked genuinely surprised. So was I. I nodded toward the elevators. Fine. 20 minutes. Vivian picked up her suitcase. I reached for it automatically. Our hands touched on the handle. She froze. It was ridiculous. We had been married for 3 years. I had held her hand for photographs, escorted her through crowded rooms, and once carried her from the car when she twisted her ankle. But that small touch felt different now. There was no audience, no contract requiring it. Vivian's fingers remained beneath mine. You can let go, I said quietly. You touched me first. I was taking the suitcase. I can carry it. I know. Neither of us moved. Then Claire took the handle from both of us. I'll carry it. We looked at her. She sighed. You're welcome. The diner was crowded, loud, and completely unsuited to Vivian Sterling. She sat in a booth by the window and immediately wiped the table with a napkin. I slid into the seat opposite her. You're surviving. The surface is sticky. It's syrup. That does not improve the situation. The waitress approached with a menu and a tired smile. What can I get you? Coffee, I said. Vivian looked at the menu. The waitress waited. I leaned toward her. She'll have black coffee with oat milk on the side, 2 eggs, dry toast, and fruit. Vivian looked up. I can order for myself. You've had the menu for 30 seconds and haven't turned the page. I was reading. You were looking for the calorie information. The waitress looked between us. Mary, Vivian answered first. Yes, I answered at the same time. Complicated. The waitress nodded knowingly. So Mary, she walked away. Vivian folded the menu. You shouldn't contradict me in public. You shouldn't claim me in public. Her expression cooled. Claim you. You said we were married. We are. Only because you refused to sign. I don't refuse. You tore the papers. Claire had sent me a photo the previous night. Half a divorce agreement in the trash. Vivian's eyes moved to the table. How did you know? Claire, I'm revising her confidentiality agreement. She's loyal to you. She reports my personal decisions to you. She thinks you're making bad ones. Vivian looked toward the window. There are digital copies. I deleted them. Legal has backups. I revoked access. I leaned back. You are actively preventing the divorce. Yes. The directness surprised me. Why? She took too long to answer. The waitress returned with coffee. Vivian poured the oat milk slowly, buying herself time. You what's it here? Because you miss me? I asked. Her hand stopped. That was your message. I know what I wrote. You didn't mention it this morning. You didn't respond. I didn't know how. You could have said you miss me too. I could have lied. The words hurt her. I saw it. Vivian set down the small pitcher. You don't miss me? I miss parts of our life. Which parts? Breakfast, arguing about refrigerators, reminding you not to insult senators. You miss managing me. That is exactly what I asked you to consider. Her eyes narrowed. This is not the same. Why not? Because I miss you. There was no hesitation this time. The diner noise blurred around us. Vivian looked directly at me. I miss your voice in the morning. I miss hearing you complain about the news. I miss the way you tap the counter while the coffee brews. I miss you changing the temperature because you think I'm cold even when I say I'm not. I didn't move. She continued, quieter now. I miss knowing where you are. That last one sounds controlling. I know. I almost laughed. Vivian looked irritated. I'm trying to be honest. I know. Then stop making jokes. Jokes are how I survive uncomfortable conversations. I know that too. The waitress placed our food on the table. Neither of us touched it. Vivian studied my face. Do you miss me? Yes. The answer cost me more than I expected. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. But missing you doesn't solve anything. I added. The softness disappeared. You think I came here because I expected one conversation to fix 3 years? I don't know why you came. I told you. You said you wanted to talk. I came because you left. That's generally what happens after divorce. And I hated it. The words were sharp, unpolished, real. I watched her struggle to continue. Vivian had always been able to explain financial projections, legal risks, and corporate strategy without notes. Feelings turned her into a different person. I hated waking up and seeing your chair empty, she said. I hated that you rented an apartment without telling me. I hated that another woman knew where your kitchen was before I did. Nora lives next door. That is not reassuring. She's not interested in me. How do you know? She spent most of dinner talking about her ex-husband. She has an ex-husband? You ran a background check. It was limited. I shook my head. You cannot investigate every woman I speak to. I don't intend to. You investigated one in less than 12 hours. She entered your apartment. She brought chili. You keep saying that as if chili cannot be manipulative. I laughed. Vivian didn't. Then, slowly, the corner of her mouth lifted. It was the first genuine smile I had seen from her since before I left. It made everything harder. You look tired. I said, I am. Why didn't you sleep? She looked at her coffee. Your room was empty. I had no answer. Vivian continued. I went inside. You never went into my room. I know. What did you do? Nothing. Vivian. I sat on the bed. My chest tightened. For how long? I don't know. You always know. 47 minutes. I looked down at my plate. She remembered everything in numbers. Hours worked, miles traveled, money spent, minutes sitting alone in an empty room. I found your old cuff link under the dresser, she said. The silver one? Yes. I lost that 2 years ago. I kept it. Why? She looked at me as though the answer should have been obvious. Because it was yours. The waitress passed our booth and glanced at the untouched food. You two planning to eat, or just emotionally destroy each other? I looked at her. Vivian blinked. The waitress walked away before either of us answered. I picked up my fork. She's efficient. I respect her. We ate in silence for a few minutes. It felt dangerously familiar. Vivian removed the crust from her toast. I took it without thinking and ate it. She noticed. Neither of us commented. Finally, she said, come back to New York. I set down the fork. No. Her eyes hardened. You answered too quickly. I've already started my job. You can work remotely. That isn't the point. I'll create a Boston division. You already tried that. I could create a real one. I don't want you rearranging your company to keep me near you. What do you want? The question came out with frustration. Ista did. I want you to know why you're asking me back. I told you. I miss you. That isn't enough. It should be. For a weekend, maybe. Not for a marriage. Vivian looked offended. You loved me for 3 years with less than that. That was my mistake. Her face went still. I regretted the sentence immediately, but I didn't take it back. I survived on scraps. I said, a look across a room. You waiting for me after a meeting. You remembering how I took my coffee once every 6 months. I turned every small kindness into proof that maybe one day you would love me. Vivian's eyes dropped. I didn't know. You didn't ask. I know. I cannot come back because you're lonely. I am not only lonely. Then what are you? She looked at me, terrified. That word did not belong in Vivian's voice. I stared at her. Of what? That you'll build a life here. That was the plan. With people who don't know me. They know you. Everyone knows you. They don't know us. Neither did we. She flinched. I hated myself for it. But this conversation had been postponed for 3 years. We could not keep pretending pain was cruelty simply because honesty hurt. Vivian folded her hands on the table. What do I need to do? To stop the divorce? To make you believe me? Believe what? Her jaw tightened. That you mattered. Past tense. The words sat between us. I raised my eyebrows. Vivian caught it. Matter. She corrected. You matter. To you. Yes. How? She looked genuinely frustrated. Why do you need every feeling defined? Because you communicate through contracts. That is unfair. You brought divorce papers to breakfast. Her face closed. I thought you would object. I stopped. What? Vivian looked away. I thought you would negotiate. You wanted me to ask to stay? I expected you to. Why? Because you always negotiate when you think I'm making a mistake. I stared at her. You gave me a divorce agreement on the exact day our contract ended. I included amendments. I didn't read them. I know. What did they say? Vivian reached into her handbag and removed a folded document. She placed it between us. I opened it. The First Amendment extended my health insurance indefinitely. The second transferred the penthouse into joint ownership. The third gave me permanent voting rights in the Sterling Family Foundation. I looked up. This isn't a divorce settlement. It is part of one. It keeps me connected to you. Yes. Why? Vivian's fingers tightened around her coffee cup. I didn't know how to ask you to stay. I read the final clause. The apartment on West 72nd Street could not be sold without both signatures. The investment account required joint management. Even in divorce, she had written me into her life. You expected me to read this and understand? I asked. I expected you to question it. I trusted you. That was inconvenient. I laughed once, without humor. You're unbelievable. I'm aware. I closed the document. You could have said, Ethan, I don't want this to end. I didn't know that until you signed. That's not romantic. Vivian, I'm not romantic. You sent surveillance bread. It was good bread. I looked at her. She almost smiled again. Then she became serious. I know I handled it badly. Very badly. I know. You hurt me. Her eyes lowered. I know that now. And you can't fix it by buying offices, checking my locks, or refusing to file papers. What can I do? Let me live my life. The answer clearly frightened her. For how long? I don't know. Are you asking for a separation? We're already separated. I don't like that word. You don't have to. Vivian reached across the table. Her hand stopped halfway to mine. She did not touch me. For the first time, she waited. May I? She asked. My throat tightened. I nodded. She placed her hand over mine. Her fingers were cold. I turned my palm upward automatically. Vivian looked at our joined hands, as if she had never seen them before. For 3 years, every touch had been explained by appearances. This one had no excuse. I'm not signing, she said quietly. You can't hold me in a marriage I no longer want. Do you no longer want it? I looked at her. I don't want the version we had. That isn't what I asked. No. Her fingers tightened. No, I don't want any marriage with me. No, I don't know. Hope moved across her face before she could hide it. I continued, I love you. That didn't disappear when I crossed the state line. But I'm tired of loving you alone. You're not alone. You haven't said it. Vivian went still. There it was, the locked door, the one she could not open. Her hand slipped from mine. I waited. She looked down at the table. I knew what she wanted to say. Maybe she knew too. But wanting and doing were different things. I need time, she said. I nodded. So do I. Her eyes lifted. Will you have dinner with me tonight? I have plans. With Nora? No. With Daniel and the project team. Can I come? You still here. You want to attend a casual team dinner? Yes. You hate casual team dinners. I can adapt. You once left a company picnic because someone asked you to join a 3-legged race. It was humiliating. You hadn't even done it yet. The proposal was humiliating. I smiled. Vivian watched me. I haven't seen you smile at me since I arrived, she said. You accused Chili of manipulation. It remains suspicious. I shook my head. Fin. Her expression brightened in the smallest possible way. You can come. Thank you, but no announcing acquisitions. I wasn't planning to. No criticizing the restaurant. That depends on the restaurant. No buying the restaurant. I have never bought a restaurant during dinner. You considered it in Chicago. The service was unacceptable. Vivian, fine. By 7 that evening, I regretted agreeing. The dinner was held at a noisy Italian place near the office. Daniel brought his wife. 2 engineers brought partners. And Vivian arrived wearing a navy dress that made everyone at the table forget how normal conversations worked. Daniel stood. Ms. Sterling. Vivian. She corrected. He glanced at me. I hid my surprise. Vivian never asked new acquaintances to use her first name. She sat beside me, not across from me, beside me. Her knee touched mine beneath the table. She didn't move it. Dinner began awkwardly. Daniel asked about New York. Vivian gave a 3-minute answer about infrastructure trends. One of the engineers asked whether she had hobbies. Vivian looked at me. I answered. She reads murder mysteries. Her head turned. You promised not to tell anyone. That was before the divorce. Daniel grinned. Any favorites? Vivian hesitated. Then, to my surprise, she answered. By the second course, she was participating, not comfortably, but trying. She asked Daniel's wife about her work. She complimented the restaurant without purchasing it. She even laughed when someone joked about my habit of correcting technical diagrams on napkins. Then Nora entered. She wore scrubs beneath her coat and waved when she saw me. Ethan. Vivian's knee stopped touching mine. Nora walked over. I thought that was you. I stood. Nora. This is Vivian Sterling. Nora said. The complicated wife. Vivian stood slowly. And you are Nora Mitchell. Nora's eyebrows rose. You ran the background check. It was a safety assessment. Of course. I looked between them. Nora was just leaving. I was picking up dinner. Nora said, long shift. She smiled at Vivian. The bread was excellent. Vivian's expression remained perfectly polite. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I didn't. Ethan did. That did not help. Nora turned to me. You left your blue bowl at my apartment. Vivian looked at me. Your bowl is in her apartment? She brought chili. I remember. Nora smiled wider. I'll return it tomorrow. You don't need to, I said. Vivian answered at the same time. Please do. Nora looked delighted. Then she leaned closer to me and lowered her voice loudly enough for everyone to hear. She's definitely jealous. Vivian's eyes narrowed. I am not. Nora nodded. Sure, Nora. I warned. She held up her hands. I'm leaving. Before she walked away, she looked at Vivian. For what it's worth, I'm not interested in your husband. Vivian replied. For what it's worth, he is still my husband. The entire table went silent. Nora smiled. That sounded like a claim. Then she left. Daniel stared into his wine. His wife looked like she was trying not to laugh. I turned to Vivian. We discussed this. I stated a legal fact. You practically planted a flag. I was clarifying. For whom? Vivian picked up her glass. Everyone. I should have been angry. Instead, I wanted to laugh and kiss her. Both seemed dangerous. After dinner, we walked outside while Claire waited near the car. Vivian stopped beside the curb. I don't like Nora. You don't know her. She enjoys provoking me. Everyone enjoys provoking you. Your reactions are rewarding. You enjoy it most. I used to. Used to? I looked at her. I'm still deciding who I am without you. The words quieted her. A car passed. Vivian pulled her coat closer. You're cold. I said. I'm fine. You always say that. I took off my jacket and placed it over her shoulders. Vivian held the lapels. You don't have to take care of me. I know. Then why do you? I met her eyes. Because loving you isn't the part I'm trying to stop. Her lips parted. I stepped back before hope could undo me. Vivian looked down at my jacket. Come to the hotel. No, not for that. I know. I have the notebook. My expression changed. You brought it? Yes. Why? I want you to explain the entries. There are hundreds. I booked a suite. That is not persuasive. There is coffee. You don't know how to make mine. I can learn. The answer was so earnest that I nearly gave in, but I shook my head. Tomorrow. Vivian studied me. Breakfast? I start at 8. 7. At the diner? She looked pained. Yes. I smiled. She moved toward the car, then stopped. Ethan. Yes, I didn't come here to talk about divorce. I know. I came because I wanted to see you. The confession was simple. No contracts. No legal language. No strategy. Just the truth. I felt it in every part of me that still belonged to her. Good night, Vivian. Her expression fell slightly, but she nodded. Good night. I walked away before I could change my mind. When I reached my apartment building, Nora was sitting on the front steps with a blue bowl in her lap. You survived, she said. Barely. She loves you. I stopped. You spoke to her for 30 seconds. I'm a pediatric nurse. I identify emotional disasters quickly. She hasn't said that. She flew to Boston because I brought you chili. She also has a meeting. Nora gave me a look. Ethan. You sat beside her. She handed me the bowl. You still love her too. Yes. So what's the problem? She only wanted me when I left. Maybe leaving was the first time she understood she could lose you. That doesn't mean she knows how to keep me. No, Nora said. But she came here to learn. I looked toward the street. A black car remained parked at the corner. Vivian's car. She had not left. Even from that distance, I could see her silhouette in the back seat, watching the building, waiting until I was safely inside. For 3 years, I had been the one who waited. That night, for the first time, Vivian waited for me, and upstairs in her hotel suite. The torn divorce papers were laid across the desk beside my old notebook. She stared at both for a long time. Then she picked up the unsigned copy of the agreement. She tore it once, then again, and again. When Claire entered the room, the papers were scattered across the floor. Vivian stood in the middle of them, still wearing my jacket. Should I contact legal? Claire asked. No. What should I tell them? Vivian looked down at the pieces. Tell them there will be no divorce. Claire hesitated. Does Ethan know that? Vivian touched the sleeve of my jacket. Not yet. What are you going to do? For the first time, Vivian smiled without hiding it. I'm going to convince my husband to come home. Vivian was waiting outside the diner at 6:53 the next morning. I knew the exact time because she sent me a message. I am here. 7 seconds later, another arrived. You are not. I looked at the clock beside my bed and groaned. I had been awake for 20 minutes, but I had made the mistake of checking work email before getting dressed. I typed back, it's 6:53. Her response appeared immediately. You said 7. That generally means arriving before 7. I smiled despite myself. For Vivian, 7 o'clock was not a suggestion. It was a deadline with legal consequences. I arrived at 7:02. She stood near the entrance wearing a cream coat and holding 2 paper cups. "You're late," she said. "By 2 minutes." "9. You arrived early. That does not change your arrival time." I took one of the cups. "What's this?" "Coffee." "I can see that. I made it." My hand stopped halfway to my mouth. "You made coffee?" "Yes." "Personally? Why do you sound alarmed?" "Because last year you asked whether coffee filters were reusable. They looked durable. They were paper. That is a design flaw." I examined the cup. Vivian narrowed her eyes. "It is not poisoned." "That was not my concern." "What was?" "That you may have created a substance unrelated to coffee." I followed instructions. "Whose?" "Claire's." Claire emerged from the car parked at the curb. She lifted one hand. "I only gave verbal guidance. I accept no responsibility for the result." Vivian ignored her. "Try it." I took a careful sip. It was too strong, slightly bitter, and contained more milk than I usually used. But it was coffee. More importantly, Vivian had made it. "Well?" she asked. "It's good." Her expression changed. She tried to hide it, but I saw the small satisfaction in her eyes. "You're lying." "A little." "What is wrong with it?" "It's strong." "You drink strong coffee. Not strong enough to restart a stopped heart." She took the cup from me and tasted it. Her face tightened. "That is unpleasant." I laughed. Vivian looked offended. "You said it was good. You made it. That made it good." She stared at me. The irritation faded. "You used to do this every morning," she said quietly. "Make coffee. For me. You were dangerous without caffeine." I thought it simply appeared. "The machine didn't love you that much." The word slipped out before I could stop it. Vivian held my gaze. Then she handed the cup back. "I'll make it better tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" "I'm staying in Boston." "For how long?" "I haven't decided." "You have a company in New York. I also have a private aircraft." "That is not the reassuring answer you think it is." "I can work from anywhere." "You once said CEOs who worked remotely were avoiding responsibility." "I have revised my opinion." "Because you want to supervise my breakfast?" "Because my previous opinion was narrow." "You really are trying." Her chin lifted slightly. "I said I would." That answer stayed with me as we entered the diner. Vivian took the same booth as the day before. She wiped the table. "You said opposites here. You know they cleaned these." "I have seen no evidence." The waitress approached and looked between us. "You came back." Vivian nodded. "Yes." The waitress glanced at me. "She's still destroying you emotionally?" "Before 8 in the morning." "Efficient." Vivian opened the menu. "I'll have pancakes." "You set the here." She looked up. "What?" "You don't eat pancakes unless there's a natural disaster." "I am adapting." The waitress smiled. "Maple syrup on the bacon?" Vivian's face became still. I lifted both hands. "I didn't tell her." "You said it yesterday," the waitress said. Vivian looked betrayed. "I was under stress." "Pancakes," the waitress repeated. "Yes." "Bacon?" "Yes." "Maple syrup?" Vivian sighed. On the side, when the waitress left, Vivian reached into her handbag and placed my black notebook on the table. I looked at it. "You brought it." I said I would. "I hoped you might forget." "I don't forget important things." "That notebook contains private thoughts." "I know. And you read them anyway." "I know." That is usually followed by an apology. Vivian's fingers rested on the cover. "I'm sorry." The words were simple. No explanation. No defense. I looked at her carefully. "For reading it?" "For reading it without permission. For making you feel you had to hide those things. For not noticing what was happening in front of me." "That's several apologies." I wrote them down. "You wrote down an apology?" I wanted to say it correctly. She opened her handbag again and removed a small card. I took it. There were 5 lines in her precise handwriting. "Do not explain intentions before acknowledging harm. Do not use the contract as a defense. Do not tell Ethan he misunderstood. Do not turn the conversation into a negotiation. Say I am sorry and stop talking." I looked up. "Did Claire write this?" "Oh, a therapist?" Vivian looked uncomfortable. "A relationship article." "You read a relationship article?" 11. I tried not to smile. "Any useful findings?" "Most of them assume people communicate voluntarily." That must have been confusing. It was repetitive. I placed the card on the table. "Thank you." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "For apologizing," I added. "Not for invading my privacy." "I understand." The food arrived. Vivian poured syrup onto the bacon. I watched. She noticed. "Do not comment." I wasn't going to. "You were." I was thinking it loudly. For several minutes, we ate without speaking. The silence felt different now. Not safe. Exactly. But less guarded. Vivian opened the notebook to the first page. "I want to ask you about something." "You've already read it." "That doesn't mean I understood it." I nodded. She read aloud. Vivian never asks for help. Offer it without making her admit she needs it. I remembered writing that after she had spent 3 days preparing for a board vote, while recovering from the flu. What didn't you understand? How did you know that you needed help? Yes, you became meaner. I am always direct. You told a vice president his presentation made you question the purpose of literacy. It was poorly formatted. You also tried to open a soup container with a letter opener. Her expression tightened. I was tired. You were sick. I said I was fine. You say that whenever you're not. Vivian lowered her eyes to the notebook. Why didn't you tell me you noticed? I did. No, you brought me food and moved meetings. You didn't say why. Because you would have refused. That isn't the same as asking. You wanted me to ask? She hesitated. I wanted to know you cared. I stared at her. I did care. I know now. That's the problem. Vivian, you know now because you read a notebook I left behind. She closed it. I knew before. Did you? Yes. How? She looked almost annoyed by the question. You always walked on my left side in crowds. I stopped. What? You kept people from approaching my injured shoulder. I had forgotten she knew about that. She continued. You warmed my side of the car before I got in during winter. You replaced the office lights because the old ones triggered my headaches. You called the kitchen every time I had a late meeting and told them not to use walnuts. You don't like walnuts. I know. You said you never noticed. I said I didn't understand. Understand what? That you were doing those things because you loved me. My chest tightened. What did you think? That you were kind. I'm not that kind. I know that now too. The waitress returned with more coffee. Vivian waited until she left. I thought you treated everyone that way. I don't. You remembered Claire's birthday. She threatened me. I thought you were naturally attentive. I am naturally attentive to people I care about. Vivian looked down at her plate, and I was one of them. You were all of them. She went completely still. I regretted saying it as soon as I saw her face. Not because it wasn't true, because it was. For 3 years, Vivian had been the center of every routine I built, every plan, every decision. I had made it look effortless because loving her had become automatic. She set down her fork. Why did you agree to the contract? I knew she would ask eventually. The answer had seemed simple 3 years ago. Now it felt dangerous. My sister needed surgery. Vivian nodded. I know. The insurance dispute was taking too long. I was about to sell my apartment. I know that too. You offered enough money to solve everything. That wasn't the only reason. For me, it was. Her expression hardened. That is not true. I raised my eyebrows. You love me already. The statement was so direct that I looked around the diner. No one was listening, at least not openly. How do you know? The notebook. The first entry about loving you came 11 months later. The first written entry. I said nothing. Vivian leaned forward. You looked at me differently before the wedding. How? As if you were angry with yourself. That could describe most of our conversations. You asked whether I was certain about the contract 4 times. I wanted to understand the terms. You memorized them after the first review. I looked at her. She held my gaze. You loved me before we married, she said. It was not a question. I exhaled. I was getting there. When? Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because I want to know how long I failed to see it. The honesty in her voice removed my last defense. I leaned back. Do you remember the Seattle conference? 4 years ago. You had been awake for almost 2 days. Everyone kept asking for decisions. You left the closing dinner without telling anyone. Vivian nodded slowly. I found you in the service hallway sitting on a crate. Her expression changed. You weren't crying. I continued. You just looked tired. Not normal tired. Alone tired. I remember. You told me to leave. You didn't. No. You brought me a sandwich. You hadn't eaten. It had mustard. You hate mayonnaise. I also dislike mustard. You ate it. I was hungry. You fell asleep while I was talking. Vivian looked toward the window. I woke up with your jacket over me. That was when. She turned back to me. When what? When I realized I was in trouble. Her lips parted. I continued before I lost my nerve. You weren't the ice queen in that hallway. You were just a woman who had spent years making herself useful, so no one could leave her behind. Vivian's face lost all expression. I knew I had touched something private. I didn't know much about you then, I said, but I knew I wanted to be someone you didn't have to perform for. She looked down at the notebook, and then I offered you a contract. Yes. Why did you accept if you already felt that way? Because you needed a husband. That was the public explanation. It was the only explanation you gave me. Her fingers tightened around the notebook. You should have refused. I didn't want to. You knew it would hurt. I thought being near you would be enough. And was it? For a while. Vivian swallowed. I'm sorry. This apology was quieter than the first. I believed it more. After breakfast, I walked her back to the hotel. She had a video call with New York, and I had work. At the entrance, she handed me the notebook. You're returning it? It belongs to you. You said you wanted to ask about the entries. I do. Then keep it. Vivian looked surprised. I trust you not to read anything I haven't already written. That is an extremely limited form of trust. It's what I have today. She accepted the notebook. I'll earn more. The sentence followed me to work. At 10:30, Daniel called me into the conference room. Two attorneys were waiting. One represented Mercer Systems. The other wore a Sterling Technologies badge. My mood changed immediately. What is this? Daniel stood near the window, looking uncomfortable. The Sterling attorney requested a meeting. The man rose. Mr. Carter, my name is Robert Hayes. I represent Ms. Sterling in personal matters. I know who you are. Robert had attended our wedding. He had also written the original contract. He indicated the chair opposite him. We need to discuss the status of your marital agreement. I have nothing to discuss. Ms. Sterling has declined to authorize filing. I know. She also revoked legal access to the executed copy. She cannot erase my signature. No. Then why are we here? Robert opened a folder. Because Ms. Sterling has proposed an alternative. I almost laughed. Of course she has. Daniel looked between us. I can leave. No, I said. Stay. Robert hesitated. This is confidential. Daniel is my employer. If your proposal affects my job, he stays. It does not. Then he'll hear how my wife intends to trap me in a marriage. The conference room door opened. Vivian walked in. Robert stood immediately. Ms. Sterling. I looked at her. You said you had a video call. I finished early. You arranged this. Yes. Her calm answer irritated me more than denial would have. I turned to Robert. What is the alternative? He opened the folder and slid a document toward me. The title read, Marital Reconciliation Agreement. I looked at Vivian. No, you haven't read it. I don't need to. Her expression tightened. That is what you said about the divorce papers. And look how well that went. Robert cleared his throat. The agreement suspends divorce proceedings for 6 months. During that period, both parties would attend counseling, maintain separate residences, and participate in scheduled. Vivian folded her arms. Ethan, you turned reconciliation into another contract. I was trying to create structure. For what? For us. There is no us that can be repaired through scheduled participation. The agreement protects you. From what? From me changing the terms. You're the only person who writes the terms. I asked Robert to make them equal. I picked up the document. The first page contained a list of obligations. Weekly counseling. 2 dinners per week. No surveillance. No interference with employment. No investigation of personal acquaintances without consent. I looked at her. You included Nora. I included everyone. The next clause required complete financial independence during the 6-month period. Another prohibited either party from using company resources to pressure the other. The document was fair, thoughtful, even, and completely wrong. I placed it down. I'm not signing. Vivian's face remained calm, but I saw the fear behind it. Why? Because you still think love is something you can control with conditions. It is not a love contract. It has a section called Emotional Disclosure Expectations. Robert looked embarrassed. Vivian glanced at him. You said that language was standard. It is not widely used, he admitted. I almost smiled. Vivian looked back at me. I don't know how to do this without rules. I know. That doesn't mean I'm not trying. I know that too. Then why are you rejecting it? Because I need you to choose me when there is no clause requiring it. Her expression broke slightly. I am choosing you. You brought a lawyer. I bring lawyers when I'm afraid. The room went silent. Robert looked down at his folder. Daniel found the ceiling fascinating. I stared at Vivian. She had said the words without hesitation. I was afraid you would leave this meeting and never speak to me again. She continued. I thought if we agreed to 6 months, I would have time. Time for what? To become someone you could come home to. My anger softened, but not enough. You don't become that person by signing an agreement. What am I supposed to do? Ask. Her eyebrows drew together. For 6 months. For a chance. Vivian looked at me. I waited. This was what she had avoided since the morning I left. No legal language. No negotiation. No protection. Just the possibility that I might say no. Her hands slowly unfolded. Ethan, she said, will you give me a chance to fix this? My chest tightened. What does fixing it mean? I don't know yet. That may be the best answer you've given me. A small, nervous hope appeared in her eyes. But I'm not moving back. I added. I know. I'm not leaving Mercer. I know. No security reports. I canceled them. No background checks. She hesitated. Vivian. No background checks. No surprise acquisitions. The Boston expansion has strategic value. Cancel it. She looked pained. Fine, Daniel quietly said. For what it's worth, Boston is an excellent market. I looked at him, not helping. He lifted both hands. Vivian took a breath. I accept those conditions. These aren't conditions. They're boundaries. What is the difference? Conditions are used to control someone else. Boundaries explain what I'll accept. Vivian nodded slowly. I need to read more articles. That might help. Robert leaned forward. Should I revise the agreement to reflect? No, Vivian and I said together. Robert closed the folder. I looked at Vivian. What happens to the divorce papers? Her gaze shifted to the document on the table. The signed copy is here. Robert frowned. I thought you revoked access. I did. Vivian reached into her handbag and removed the original agreement. My signature was visible on the last page. I stared at it. You brought it? Yes. Why? She stepped closer to the table. Because I wanted you to see this. She took the first page in both hands. Then she tore it down the middle. Robert stood. Ms. Sterling. Vivian tore the second page, then the third. The sound of ripping paper filled the conference room. She did not rush. She tore every page deliberately, dropping the pieces onto the table between us. When she reached the signature page, she paused. My name stretched across the bottom. Her fingers tightened, then she tore through it. Robert looked horrified. That was an executed legal document. There are copies, I said. Vivian reached for Robert's folder and removed the duplicate. She tore that too. Robert closed his eyes. Digital copies remain. I deleted them. Backups exist. I instructed information security to remove them. I stared at her. You ordered company employees to destroy legal records? Personal records. That sounds illegal. Robert spoke carefully. It is complicated. Vivian looked at him. Make it uncomplicated. He rubbed his forehead. I will contact the appropriate departments. She nodded and turned back to me. There will be no divorce agreement. You can't simply destroy every copy. No. Then what are you doing? Making my position clear. Which is? She stepped close enough that only the table separated us. I don't want our marriage to end. The words were steady, public, witnessed. I had waited 3 years to hear them. They still weren't the words I needed most, but they were real. Why? I asked. Vivian did not look away. Because I love you. Everything inside me stopped. Daniel moved quietly toward the door. Robert followed him. Neither said a word. The door closed behind them. Vivian and I remained alone in the conference room with pieces of our divorce scattered across the table. I could hear the office outside, phones ringing, people talking, a printer starting somewhere down the hall. But inside the room, there was only her confession. I had imagined it hundreds of times. In our kitchen, in the car, at a gala after too much champagne. Never in a glass conference room beside a document shredder. Say it again, I said. Vivian's face changed. She looked afraid now. Not CEO afraid. Vivian afraid. I love you. My throat tightened. How long? I don't know. That's not like you. I know. You know dates. I know when I first noticed it. When? The night you left soup outside my door. That was almost 3 years ago. Yes. You knew then? No. I knew I wanted you to stay outside the door. That sounds romantic. It was confusing. I almost laughed, but my eyes had begun to burn. Vivian continued. I knew when you went to Chicago for 4 days, and I couldn't sleep. I knew when a woman touched your arm at the foundation gala, and I spent 2 weeks restructuring her father's account. I knew that was jealousy. She was inappropriate. She asked me where the restroom was. She could have asked someone else. I smiled. Vivian took another step. I knew every time you came home late, and I waited in the living room pretending to read. You could have told me. I thought you would leave if I changed the agreement. I left because you didn't. I know. Her voice cracked on the final word. That was when I believed her. Not because she had flown to Boston. Not because she had torn up the papers. Because Vivian Sterling, who had spent her entire life refusing to sound weak. Let me hear the fear in her voice. I walked around the table. She watched me approach without moving. I stopped in front of her. You hurt me. I know. I don't trust this yet. I know. I still need space. Her expression fell, but she nodded. I know. I looked at the torn paper behind her. This was dramatic. I thought you might appreciate a clear gesture. You destroyed a legally complicated document in front of your attorney. He will recover. I laughed. Vivian's eyes softened. Then she reached for my hand. Again, she stopped before touching me. May I? I nodded. Her fingers closed around mine. She held my hand carefully, as if it was something she had already lost once. I'm not asking you to come back today, she said. Good. I'm asking you not to close the door. I haven't. You moved to another state. The door is farther away. That was almost a joke. It was a good joke. She stepped closer. Our joined hands rested between us. I want to date you, she said. I blinked. What? Date you? We're married. Claire said that was not an acceptable substitute for courtship. Claire has become very involved. She sent me a spreadsheet. Of course she did. It contains date ideas categorized by cost, intimacy level, and weather dependence. That is the least romantic thing I've ever heard. I found it reassuring. I shook my head. You want to date your husband? Yes. Without a contract. Her fingers tightened. Yes. And if I say no to a date, I will accept it. Without purchasing the location, I will try. Vivian, I will accept it. Istaditad. Fine. Her eyes widened slightly. Fine. One date. When? You're already trying to schedule it. I need basic information. Friday. Dinner? No. She frowned. What kind of date happens without dinner? Many kinds. I researched dinner. Then your research was incomplete. What are we doing? It's a surprise. Vivian's expression tightened immediately. I dislike surprises. I know. Can you provide a category? No. Indoor or outdoor? No. Dress code? Comfortable. That is subjective. Wear shoes you can walk in. How far? I smiled. You said you wanted to date me. I do. Then trust me. Vivian looked at me for a long moment. All right. The answer seemed difficult. That made it meaningful. She released my hand reluctantly. I should return to New York tonight. You're leaving? I have an investor call tomorrow morning. You could take it here. I canceled the Boston expansion. Good. And I am attempting to respect your space. That's very mature. I dislike it. I know. She glanced at the clock. My car is downstairs. I walked her to the elevator. When the doors opened, she stepped inside, then turned. Ethan. Yes. Are we still separated? Yes. She looked disappointed. But we have a date. I added. The smallest smile appeared. Yes. The doors began to close. Vivian placed one hand between them. They opened again. What now? I forgot something. She stepped out, caught the front of my shirt, and kissed my cheek. It lasted less than a second. Then she released me and returned to the elevator. I stood frozen. Vivian pressed the button for the lobby. Her face was composed again, but her cheeks were pink. Was that on Claire's spreadsheet? I asked. No. The doors started to close. That was my idea. Then she disappeared. I remained in the hallway with my hand against my cheek. Daniel stepped out of his office. Did Vivian Sterling just kiss you? Go back inside. He looked toward the elevator. Should I tell reception we're safe? For now. When I returned to the conference room, Robert was collecting the pieces of the divorce agreement. You know she can request another copy, I said. He placed the torn pages into a folder. She told me not to. Will you listen? Robert gave me a tired look. Mr. Carter, I have represented Ms. Sterling for 12 years. I have seen her dismantle acquisitions, remove board members, and make a senator apologize in writing. That doesn't answer my question. He looked toward the elevator. I have never seen her look at anyone the way she looked at you. I said nothing. Robert closed the folder. She isn't good at this. I know. But she is trying. I know that too. Are you going to return? Not yet. He nodded. That is probably wise. I looked at the torn agreement. For 3 years, I had believed Vivian needed rules because she did not feel enough. Now I understood the opposite might be true. She needed rules because she felt too much and had no idea what to do with it. That did not erase the pain. It did not rebuild trust, but it gave us somewhere to begin. On Friday afternoon, I received a message from her. I bought comfortable shoes. A photograph followed. Vivian had purchased polished leather boots with a 3-inch heel. I called her immediately. Those are not walking shoes. They are boots. They are expensive weapons. They have rubber soles. You'll last 15 minutes. I can walk in heels. You cannot walk on uneven ground in those. There was a pause. What kind of date is this? You'll find out. Ethan, return the boots. I cannot. I wore them around the apartment. Why? To break them in. I laughed. This isn't funny. It's a little funny. I am trying to impress you. The laughter left me. Her confession was so unguarded that it hurt. You don't have to impress me. I said, then what do I have to do? Show up. I can do that. I know. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, I'm looking forward to it. So am I. After we ended the call, I looked around my apartment. Vivian was going to hate Friday's date. It involved crowds, cheap food, no reservations, and absolutely no privacy. It was everything she avoided. It was also where I had first imagined taking her years ago, before contracts and penthouses and public appearances turned us into people who only knew how to perform marriage. This time, I would not ask her to perform. I wanted to see whether Vivian Sterling could simply be with me. And in New York, she stood in the penthouse bedroom staring at 3 pairs of shoes lined up on the floor. Claire leaned against the doorway. You know the purpose of a date is not to win. Vivian looked at her. That sounds incorrect. You're supposed to enjoy yourself. I intend to. You made a contingency plan. It may rain. You booked 2 restaurants. In case he forgets to feed me, he will not forget. Vivian looked toward the empty side of the closet where my clothes used to hang. No, she said softly. He never did. She picked up my wedding ring from the dresser. She still kept it beside hers. For a moment, she held both rings in her palm. Then she closed her fingers around them and smiled. The divorce papers were gone. The contract had ended. But for the first time since our wedding day, our real marriage had finally begun. Vivian arrived for our first date, carrying roses. Not one rose. Not a tasteful bouquet. 24 red roses wrapped in black paper, tied with a gold ribbon, and large enough to block half her face. I opened my apartment door and stared at them. The flowers moved slightly. Then Vivian's voice came from behind them. "Are you going to let me in?" I stepped aside. She walked past me carefully and placed the bouquet on the kitchen counter. I closed the door. "Why are there so many?" Vivian removed her coat. "The florist recommended 12. So you bought 24? 12 seemed indecisive. They're flowers, not a hostile takeover. I wanted the intention to be clear. I looked at the roses again. "It's clear." "Good." She stood in the middle of my apartment wearing dark jeans, a soft gray sweater, and, to my surprise, white sneakers. I looked down at them. Vivian followed my gaze. "These are walking shoes." "They are. I bought them at a store that sells athletic equipment." "You went into a sporting goods store?" "Yes. Alone." Claire waited outside. "That still counts." "I also bought socks." I nodded solemnly. "You're changing." The salesperson said the shoes required specific socks. "He saw you coming." Vivian narrowed her eyes. I smiled. She had dressed casually, but the results still looked expensive. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she wore almost no jewelry except the watch I had given her on our second anniversary. It wasn't technically an anniversary gift. I had called it a replacement after she complained that her old watch lost 12 seconds every month. She had known I was lying. Neither of us had acknowledged it. "You're wearing the watch," I said. Vivian glanced at her wrist. "I always wear it." "No, you don't. I wear it often." "You wore the diamond one to public events. This one is more accurate. It cost $80. It keeps excellent time. Istadidhad. You could just say you like it." "I like it." The direct answer caught me off guard. Vivian noticed. "I am practicing. I can tell." She reached for the bouquet and pushed it toward me. "You haven't accepted these." I wasn't aware there was a formal procedure. "Take them." I accepted the roses. They were heavier than expected. "Thank you." "You're welcome." "Why roses?" Her confidence weakened slightly. "Articles said men rarely receive flowers." "That's true." "They said this can make them feel appreciated." "It can." "Do you?" I looked at her. Vivian Sterling, who had commanded rooms full of executives without blinking, stood in my small kitchen, waiting nervously to find out whether I liked the flowers she had chosen. "Yes," I said. "I do." Her shoulders relaxed. "Good. Although these may require structural support." I ordered a vase. "Of course you did. It will arrive tomorrow." "I'm supposed to keep them in the sink overnight?" She looked toward the kitchen. "I didn't consider that." "We can improvise." I found a metal cooking pot and filled it with water. Vivian watched me place the roses inside. "That looks terrible." "It looks romantic. It looks like a garden growing out of cookware." Welcome to ordinary life. I'm beginning to understand why wealthy people hire decorators. I laughed. She smiled. It still surprised me every time she did that without an audience. I picked up my jacket. "Ready." "For what?" "The date. You still haven't told me where we're going." "No. You made me walk here from the hotel. It was 6 blocks. It was cold. You said you wanted an ordinary date. Ordinary people use transportation. Ordinary people also complain less. That is objectively false." I held the door open. Vivian hesitated. "Will there be many people?" "Yes." "How many?" "I don't know. Approximately. More than 10. That is not helpful." "You trust me?" She looked at me for a moment. "Yes." It was the first time she had answered that question without qualification. We left the apartment. My plan was simple. There was a Winter Street market along the river with food stalls, local artists, live music, and enough people to make Vivian uncomfortable without making escape impossible. I had wanted to take her there during the first year of our marriage. Every time I considered asking, some event appeared on her schedule. A gala, a board dinner, a foundation reception. Eventually, I stopped asking. When we reached the entrance, Vivian stopped walking. A crowd moved between rows of temporary wooden stalls. Music played from somewhere near the river. Children ran past holding hot chocolate in paper bags. Vivian looked at me. "This is the date." "Yes, there are hundreds of people. Probably, there is no private entrance. No, no reserved seating. No, no security. I'm here." Her eyes softened. Then someone bumped her shoulder while passing. Vivian turned sharply. The man looked back. "So," she stared after him. I touched her elbow. "You're safe." "I know. You look like you're considering having him arrested. He should be more careful." He apologized. That doesn't improve his spatial awareness. I offered my hand. Vivian looked down at it. "You don't have to," I said. She took it immediately. "I know." Her fingers fit between mine. We walked into the crowd. For the first 10 minutes, Vivian said almost nothing. She watched everyone around us. She checked the exits. She examined every food stall as if preparing to audit them. Then we passed a stand selling handmade ornaments. A small glass penguin caught her attention. She slowed. "You like it?" I said. "No." You stopped walking. I was observing the workmanship. "You like the penguin? It appears impractical. It's an ornament. That is my point." I picked it up. The penguin wore a tiny blue scarf and had one wing raised as if waving. The woman behind the stall smiled. "Couples love that one." Vivian's hand tightened around mine. "We'll take it," she said. I looked at her. "You just said it was impractical." "It can be impractical in my apartment." "Our apartment." I corrected automatically. The words slipped out. Vivian went still. So did I. The vendor pretended not to notice. I released a slow breath. "The penthouse," I said. Vivian's expression had already changed. Hope had appeared too quickly for me to erase it without hurting her. She paid for the ornament. The vendor wrapped it in tissue paper. Vivian placed it carefully inside her handbag. "For the penthouse," she said. "Yes, our apartment." I looked at her. She waited. I did not correct her this time. We continued walking. Vivian tried hot apple cider and declared it too sweet. Then she drank the entire cup. She bought roasted almonds, forgot she disliked eating while walking, and dropped half of them when a child ran into her. The child's mother apologized. Vivian knelt to help pick up the bag. I watched in surprise. When she stood, I said, "You didn't threaten legal action. It was a child." "You have threatened legal action against adults for less. Adults have developed judgment." We reached a stall selling knitted hats. A blue one had small bear ears on top. I placed it on her head before she could stop me. Vivian froze. "Ethan, it suits you. Remove it. You look adorable. Remove it immediately." I took out my phone. Her eyes widened. "Do not take a photograph." I took one. Vivian reached for the phone. I held it above my head. "Delete it." "No, I will break your wrist." "That's not romantic." "You were warned." The woman running the stall laughed. "You should buy it for her." "I agree," I said. Vivian looked horrified. "I am not wearing this." 10 minutes later, she was still wearing it. She claimed it was because the temperature had dropped. I did not argue. We stopped beside the river where a local band played old songs near a row of heaters. Vivian looked at the musicians. "They are not very good. They're students. They are still not very good. You're enjoying it." "No, you're moving your foot." "I'm cold." "You're keeping time." Vivian stopped moving. I laughed. She looked at me, then toward the couple standing near the music. Some were dancing, not formally, just holding each other and moving in place. Vivian followed my gaze. "No, I didn't ask." "You were going to." "Maybe. There are people watching. No one knows us here. People always know me." A woman nearby glanced toward Vivian, then whispered to her partner. Vivian noticed. I did too. She immediately became more controlled. Her shoulders straightened. Her expression cooled. The public version of Vivian had returned. I stepped in front of her. "Look at me." "I am." "No, you're looking through me." Her eyes focused on mine. "You don't have to be her here." "Her." "Vivian Sterling. That is my name. You know what I mean?" She glanced toward the people nearby. "They're staring. Let them." "I dislike being observed." "You attend events with photographers every week. That is different. I know what role I'm playing. And now, I don't." The admission was quiet. I took her hand. "Now you're on a date with me. That is not a role." "No. What am I supposed to do?" "Whatever you want." Her eyebrows drew together. "That is too broad." I smiled. "You could dance." "I don't want to dance." You looked at the couples. I was assessing crowd movement. "Of course." I stepped closer. Vivian looked at me suspiciously. "What are you doing?" "Making the decision easier." I placed one hand lightly at her waist. She stopped breathing. Our first dance had been at a charity gala 6 months into the contract. It had been rehearsed, timed, photographed. Vivian had counted steps under her breath. This time, there was no ballroom, no orchestra, no one announcing our names, just a student band playing slightly out of tune beside the river. Vivian placed her free hand on my shoulder. "This is not proper dancing." "No, we are barely moving. That's the point." She looked at my chest rather than my face. "You're nervous." I said, "I'm cold." "You use that excuse often." "It is winter." I moved closer. Her hand tightened on my shoulder. For a while, neither of us spoke. People moved around us. The band changed songs. Vivian slowly relaxed against me. Her head rested near my shoulder. I closed my eyes. This was everything I had wanted during our marriage. Not a dramatic confession. Not a public display. Just Vivian choosing to be close when no one required it. "I'm sorry," she said. I looked down. "For what?" "Every time I rejected something like this, you didn't reject it." "I never asked." "You stopped asking because you knew I would." "That's probably true." "I made you expect rejection." Her voice shook slightly. I moved my hand along her back. "We can't repair 3 years in one night." "I know. You don't have to apologize for everything at once." "I have a long list." "Of course you do. It's organized by year." I laughed into her hair. She pulled back enough to look at me. I'm serious. I know. I want to understand every time I hurt you. That sounds exhausting. I don't mind difficult work. I'm not a project. Her face changed. I know. Do you? Yes. She stepped back. The distance appeared too quickly. I don't want to fix you, she said. I want to fix what I did. That's different. I am learning the difference. I nodded. That's why I'm here. Hope returned to her eyes. We left the music and walked through the rest of the market. Vivian bought me a leather notebook after I said the old one was almost full. She argued with a food vendor who gave me the wrong order. She ate half my sandwich because hers had onions. At one point, she reached for my hand without looking at me. That small gesture meant more than the roses. Near the exit, she stopped at a jewelry stall. A row of inexpensive silver rings sat beneath the glass. Vivian stared at them. I followed her gaze. Don't. She looked at me. I wasn't doing anything. You were considering buying one. No. You have your purchasing face. What is my purchasing face? Like you've already decided and everyone else is delaying the process. She looked back at the rings. I still have yours. I know. Do you want it back? The question surprised me. Not yet. Her lips pressed together. But maybe someday? She asked. I looked at her. Maybe. Vivian nodded once. She did not buy a ring. That mattered too. By the time we reached my apartment, it was nearly 9. Vivian's cheeks were pink from the cold, and the bear hat was still on her head. I unlocked the door. She looked at me. May I come in? The fact that she asked made my answer easy. Yes. Inside, the roses had opened slightly in the cooking pot. Vivian removed her coat and hat. Her hair fell in every direction. I smiled. What? Nothing. You're staring. You have hat hair. She reached for her hair. I caught her wrist. Leave it. Why? I like it. Vivian stopped trying to fix it. Again, the smallest choices felt enormous. I made tea. She sat at the kitchen counter and watched me. You didn't arrange this date to test me, she said. No, I thought you did. I wanted to take you there years ago. Her expression softened. Why didn't you? You were busy. You could have insisted. You would have called it inefficient. I probably would have. She wrapped both hands around the tea. I liked it. The date, yes. Even the crowd, no. The food, some of it. The music, not technically. The hat, absolutely not. You kept it. She glanced at the blue hat on the counter. It is warm. Of course. Vivian looked into her cup. Will there be another date? I think so. When? Vivian, I am not scheduling. I am asking. Next week. Her eyes lifted. You'll still be here? I frowned. Where would I be? She looked away. Something in her posture changed. What? Claire told me Mercer offered you a position in London. You said to her, how does Claire know? She heard Daniel discussing it during the conference room meeting. That wasn't an offer. She said they want you to lead the European Systems Division. It's a possibility. When were you going to tell me? My body tensed. This is exactly why I wanted separate lives. That is not an answer. I learned about it yesterday, and you're considering it. I'm considering everything. Vivian set down the cup. The bottom struck the counter harder than necessary. You just moved to Boston. Yes, and now you may move to London. It would be a promotion. You don't need a promotion. I don't need your permission either. Her face became cold. I did not say you needed permission. You implied I shouldn't go because it's inconvenient for you. It is more than inconvenient. Why? Because London is 3,000 miles away. That's generally how geography works. This isn't funny. I'm not trying to be funny. Vivian stood. The warmth from the date disappeared. You said there would be another date. There can be. In London, I haven't accepted anything, but you might. Yes. The answer hit her visibly. She turned away and gripped the edge of the counter. I knew that posture. She was holding herself still because everything inside her was moving too quickly. Vivian, you're leaving again. I'm not leaving. You are considering it. I am allowed to consider my career. I know. Then why are you angry? I'm not angry. You're crushing the countertop. Her fingers relaxed. She stepped back. I should go. That's not what you want. You don't know what I want. Then tell me. She picked up her coat. You want me to communicate. But every time I do, you explain why my feelings are unreasonable. I didn't say they were unreasonable. You called my reaction controlling because you're acting like I should reject an opportunity to prove something to you. You should want to stay. The words cut through the room. I looked at her. Vivian's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't take them back. You should want to stay near me, she said. If what happened today meant anything, it did. Then why is London still an option? Because one good date doesn't mean I hand you control of my future again. I don't want control. You opened an office after I moved. I canceled it. You ran background checks. I stopped. You prevented the divorce. Because I love you. And I love you. I said, louder than I intended. But loving you cannot mean I stop making choices for myself. Vivian's face changed. The anger disappeared. Only fear remained. I know, she whispered. I lowered my voice. Do you? I am trying. Then trust that I'll tell you if the offer becomes real. And if you want it, then we talk. Talk about what? About whether we can make it work. Her eyes searched mine. You would consider me? Of course I would. The answer surprised her. I stepped closer. I left because I didn't think you wanted me. That doesn't mean I'm looking for reasons to disappear. It feels like you are. I understand. No, you don't. Vivian's voice broke. You don't know what it was like after you left. I went still. She looked down at the coat in her hands. I kept hearing you in the apartment. My anger faded. In the kitchen. In the hallway. I woke up twice thinking you were making coffee. Vivian, I opened your bedroom door every morning even though I knew it was empty. She swallowed. I know this is not fair. I know you are allowed to leave. I know a job is not betrayal. Her eyes lifted to mine, but every time you talk about another city, I feel that morning again. The honesty hurt more than the argument. I moved toward her slowly. Come here. She hesitated. Then she stepped into my arms. Vivian held me tightly. Not elegantly, not carefully. Her hands gripped the back of my sweater, as if she believed I might vanish while she was holding me. I wrapped both arms around her. I'm here, I said. For tonight. For tonight. That isn't enough. It has to be for now. She pressed her face against my shoulder. I hate this. Not knowing. Not being able to make you stay. I closed my eyes. That's the point. I know. You can't make me. I know. You have to believe I might choose you. Her arms tightened. I don't know how. I pulled back enough to see her face. Then learn. How? By letting me leave tonight. Vivian stared at me. The words sounded cruel, but she understood. She had to return to her hotel. She had to trust that distance did not always mean abandonment, that I could have a life outside her and still come back. She released me slowly. Will you call me tomorrow? Yes. What time? I smiled faintly. I don't know. Her expression tightened. Then she took a breath. All right. That single phrase required more courage from her than tearing the divorce papers. She put on her coat. At the door, she turned. Thank you for the date. Thank you for the flowers. The florist said red roses represented romantic love. He was correct. I considered white roses. You hate white lilies. Those are different flowers. They still smell like hospital waiting rooms. A small smile appeared. I remember saying that now. I remember everything. Her smile faded slightly. I know. She stepped into the hallway. I leaned against the doorframe. Vivian. She looked back. I haven't accepted London. Hope appeared. And if I do, you'll be the first person I tell. Her eyes became suspiciously bright. Before Daniel, he'll probably be in the room. Then I'll be the first non-employer. That's the best I can promise. I accept. She walked toward the elevator. This time, she did not look back. I watched until the doors closed. Then I returned to the kitchen and saw a white envelope beside the roses. I frowned. My name was written on the front. Inside was a small card. Vivian's handwriting filled the center. Thank you for showing me who we could have been. I hope you'll let me become who we can still be. Below that, she had added. Also, the bear hat was humiliating. I laughed. Then I read the first two lines again. At the hotel, Claire was waiting in the suite when Vivian returned. How did it go? Vivian removed her coat. He may move to London. Claire's expression changed. Is that confirmed? No. Did you ask him not to go? Yes. Vivian. I stopped. That is progress. It felt terrible. Progress often does. Vivian sat on the edge of the sofa. Claire noticed the bear hat in her hand. What is that? Nothing. You wore it. It was cold. Claire smiled. Vivian glared at her. Then her phone vibrated. A message from me. Home safe? She stared at the screen. Claire watched her expression soften. Well, Vivian typed carefully. Yes. A second later, I replied. Good. I had a great time tonight. Vivian read it twice, then 3 times. Her fingers moved. So did I. She hesitated before sending another message. I love you. The message remained unsent. Claire sat beside her. You can say it. I already did. Once. It remains true. Then saying it again won't damage the value. Vivian looked down at the words. After several seconds, she pressed send. In my apartment, my phone lit up while I was placing the roses near the window. I read her message. I love you. No argument. No explanation. No contract. I typed back. I love you too. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, Vivian sent one last message. Please don't move to London. I smiled. I did not promise, but I answered honestly. Give me a reason to stay. Vivian stared at those words in her hotel suite. Claire read them over her shoulder. That sounds hopeful. Vivian locked the phone. No. She stood and walked toward the desk. That sounds like a challenge. Claire sighed. Relationships are not acquisitions. Vivian opened her laptop. I know. What are you doing? Research. On London. On reasons, Claire covered her face with one hand, but Vivian was already typing. For the first time, she was not looking for a way to stop me from leaving. She was looking for a way to make staying feel like my choice. Vivian's reason for asking me to stay arrived in Boston inside a black envelope. Not by email, not through a lawyer, not hidden inside a new contract. A courier handed it to the receptionist at Mercer Systems on Monday morning, along with strict instructions that only I could sign for it. Daniel watched me carry it into my office. Is that from your wife? Probably. It looks threatening. Everything from Vivian looks threatening. Should I call security? She owns better security. That is not reassuring. I sat at my desk and opened the envelope. Inside was a single train ticket to New York. No first-class private car. No Sterling aircraft waiting at a private terminal. Just an ordinary ticket for Friday evening. Beneath it was a handwritten card. I found something you should see. No pressure. No lawyers. No surprises involving property purchases. Please come home for one night. I read the final sentence twice. Come home. Not come to New York. Not come to the penthouse. Home. Daniel leaned against the doorframe. You're smiling. I'm not. You are. I have a facial muscle disorder. Does the disorder also make you stare at train tickets like they proposed marriage? I placed the card face down. It's complicated. You say that often. My life is poorly designed. Daniel stepped into the office. Are you going? I don't know. That means yes. It means I'm thinking. Does she know about London? The formal offer hasn't arrived. It will. I looked at him. Daniel's expression became more serious. The board approved the role this morning. London wants you there by the beginning of next quarter. That's soon. They're offering full authority over the European systems team. And relocation covered. Salary. He named a number. I leaned back in my chair. It was more than I had expected. More responsibility. More freedom. More distance from Vivian. Daniel studied me. You don't have to answer today. When? Next Friday. Exactly 1 week after Vivian wanted me to return to New York. I picked up her card again. Give me a reason to stay. I had told her. Now she wanted me in the place I had left behind. I wasn't sure whether that counted as a reason or a test. I need the weekend, I said. Daniel nodded. Take it. He started to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, I'd choose London because of the job, because distance helps people make clean decisions. My decisions have never been clean. That sounds like another reason to go. He left before I could answer. I spent the rest of the day trying not to think about the ticket. I failed. By lunchtime, I had checked the train schedule 3 times. By 3, I had searched hotel rooms in New York despite knowing Vivian would expect me to stay at the penthouse. By 5, I had written and deleted 4 messages. Finally, I sent one. What did you find? Her reply arrived almost immediately. Something I should have told you 3 years ago. That did not help. Is this about the marriage? Yes. Did you commit a crime? Not intentionally. That answer made me sit up. Vivian, it is not a crime. Robert confirmed. You asked a lawyer. I ask lawyers many things. That is exactly why I'm concerned. 3 dots appeared. Then, please come. The simplicity of it decided me. I'll be there Friday. Her answer came 10 seconds later. Thank you. A second message followed. Will you stay at the penthouse? I stared at it. The question carried too much history. Separate bedrooms. Quiet breakfasts. Waiting outside closed doors. 3 years of pretending proximity was enough. One night, I typed, guest room. Vivian took longer to answer this time. Of course, no argument, no pressure. That mattered. Friday evening, I boarded the train with 1 bag and a formal offer from Mercer Systems sitting unread in my email. I could have opened it. Instead, I watched the city lights pass outside the window and remembered the first time Vivian had asked me to marry her. 3 years earlier, she had called me into her office at 8:30 at night. I had expected a promotion discussion. Instead, she had locked the door and placed a contract on her desk. I need a husband, she had said. I had laughed because no reasonable response existed. Vivian had not. Her father's trust required her to remain married for 3 years before she could gain full voting control of Sterling Technologies. The board was preparing to challenge her authority. A public engagement to someone from another powerful family would have created obligations she refused to accept. She needed someone discreet, someone financially independent enough not to become a public embarrassment, someone she could trust. She chose me. I had asked why. She said, "You are suitable." For 3 years, I had hated that word, suitable, as if I had been selected from a list of acceptable candidates, as if our marriage had begun because my resume matched the requirements. When the train arrived at Penn Station, Vivian was waiting on the platform. Not Victor, not Claire. Vivian. She wore a dark green coat, her hair tied loosely behind her head. She looked tired and nervous. The nervousness shocked me more than her presence. You came, she said. You sent a ticket. You could have refused. I considered it. Her expression tightened. But I didn't. I added. She nodded. I know. I lifted my bag. Where's the car? Outside. No security team? Victor is near the entrance. That counts. He refused to let me come alone. Victor has good judgment. He says you're a bad influence. He likes me. He does. We walked through the station. Vivian stayed close without touching me. At the exit, someone moved quickly past her. Her shoulder brushed mine. I took her hand automatically. She looked down at our joined fingers. You don't have to, she said. I know. We continued walking. The car ride to the penthouse was quiet. Not uncomfortable, just heavy with everything waiting for us. Vivian looked at my bag. You only brought one. I'm staying one night. I know. You sound disappointed. I am allowed to be disappointed. That's progress. I have been reading. I'm almost afraid to ask. Claire gave me a book about attachment. Claire needs hobbies. She says this is her hobby now. I laughed. Vivian smiled briefly, then looked out the window. When we reached the building, Mrs. Alvarez was waiting in the lobby. The moment she saw me, she pressed both hands to her mouth. Mr. Carter. Hello, Mrs. Alvarez. She walked forward and hugged me before Vivian or I could react. You came back. For one night. Mrs. Alvarez released me and looked toward Vivian. One night. Vivian's expression remained controlled. That is what he said. Mrs. Alvarez shook her head in disappointment. At me, not Vivian. You left without saying goodbye properly. I said goodbye. You left a note beside the coffee machine. I didn't want to wake you. You made me cry. I'm sorry. You should be. Then she hugged me again, over her shoulder. I saw Vivian looking away. I knew why. She had spent her life believing people remained because of obligation. Mrs. Alvarez's affection embarrassed her because it could not be purchased or commanded. When we entered the penthouse, everything looked the same. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was that nothing felt the same. My coat was no longer hanging by the door. My shoes were gone from beneath the bench. The framed photograph from a foundation gala still stood on the console. Vivian and I were smiling at the camera. Her hand rested on my arm. At the time, I had thought the touch was staged. Now I wondered. You kept the photograph, I said. Vivian followed my gaze. I keep all our photographs, even the terrible one from Aspen. You looked happy. I had just fallen into a snowbank. You were laughing. You laughed too. No, I didn't. I have evidence. The photograph is unclear. I smiled. Vivian watched me carefully. Then she turned toward the hallway. Your room is ready. My old room? Yes. I walked down the hall and opened the door. The room was exactly as I had left it, except it wasn't empty. My books had returned to the shelves. My watch sat beside the lamp. Several shirts hung inside the closet. I turned. Vivian. She stood in the doorway. I didn't move them back. Who did? Mrs. Alvarez. Why? She said an empty room made the apartment look wrong. My chest tightened. You let her? Yes. I stepped inside. The silver cuff link Vivian had found under the dresser sat in a small dish beside the bed. My wedding ring lay beside it. I looked back at her. You said you kept it. I did. Why is it here? Because it belongs to you. I told you I wasn't ready. I'm not asking you to wear it. Then why put it in my room? Vivian's fingers tightened against the doorframe. I wanted you to know it was waiting. The words followed me across the room. I picked up the ring. The metal felt cold. Familiar. Dangerous. You said you found something. I said, yes. What? Dinner first. Is this another strategy? You haven't eaten since lunch. How do you know? You always skip food when you travel. I had a sandwich. At what time? 4. That is not dinner. You really do miss managing me. Vivian's expression softened. I miss knowing whether you are all right. That is not exactly the same. I am learning. I put the ring back down. Fine. Dinner. We ate in the kitchen instead of the formal dining room. Mrs. Alvarez had made roast chicken, potatoes, and the green beans Vivian claimed to dislike, but always ate. There were 2 plates, 2 glasses, 2 chairs close enough that our knees touched beneath the table. Vivian did not move hers. Neither did I. Halfway through dinner, she said, how is work? Good. Daniel respects you. He does. He is offering you London. My fork stopped. How do you know? Claire told me. Claire heard the possibility. The formal offer is private. You received it today. I stared at her. Vivian looked guilty. You check my email? No. Then how do you know? Daniel's board released an internal leadership notice. You monitor Mercer's board notices? Primer monitor con patitos. You told me Mercer wasn't a competitor. They are becoming one. Because I work there? Possibly. I leaned back. This is exactly what I meant about separate lives. I didn't interfere. You found out about a private job offer before I told you. I was not looking for information about you. You just happened to discover my name? Yes, that sounds unlikely. It was on the first page. I rubbed my forehead. Vivian lowered her voice. Are you going to accept? I haven't decided. Do you want it? Yes. The honesty hurt her. I saw it immediately. But she nodded. Then it must be a good opportunity. It is. You should consider it seriously. You want me to go? No. Then why say that? Because wanting you near me does not mean I should make your decision. That answer surprised me. Vivian continued. I told you I would learn to let you choose. And if I choose London, her hand tightened around her glass. Then I will hate London. I almost smiled, but I will not stop you. She added. Would you follow me? The question came out before I considered it. Vivian went still. Do you want me to? I asked what you would do. She looked toward the table. I don't know. That's honest. I would visit. That sounds like a schedule. I would visit often. You hate long flights. I have a plane. Of course. She took a breath. I would try not to make the decision about me. That sounds difficult. It would be. Our knees still touched. Vivian looked down at the contact. I would also ask whether there was a version of your future that included me. My chest tightened. There could be. Her gaze lifted quickly. But not if we return to what we were. I said, we won't. You can't know that. No, but I know I don't want it. I nodded. That's something. After dinner, Vivian led me into her office. A large cardboard storage box sat on the desk. The box was old. The Sterling Technologies logo printed on the side belonged to a branding design the company had stopped using years earlier. What is that? I asked. My mistake. That's a large box. I have made several. She lifted the lid. Inside were folders, photographs, printed emails, receipts, a broken black umbrella. The sight of it made me stop. I know that umbrella. You should. I picked it up. The handle was cracked. The fabric had torn away from one of the metal ribs. You took this from me in Seattle. You gave it to me. I held it over you while you got into the car. You stood in the rain. You refused to wait under the hotel entrance. There were photographers, and you didn't want them to see you tired. Vivian looked at the umbrella. You became sick afterward. It was a cold. You missed 2 days of work. I worked from home. I sent you soup. I stared at her. You sent that. Yes. The note said it was from the conference team. I was the conference chair. You signed it with the event logo. I thought a personal note would be inappropriate. I laughed once. Not because it was funny, because it was exactly what Vivian would do. Hide concern behind professional stationery. What else is in the box? She reached inside and removed a photograph. It showed me standing at a company volunteer event 4 years ago, holding a little girl's bicycle while tightening the chain. I looked younger, less careful. Why do you have this? The communications team took it. You kept it? Yes. Why? Vivian folded her arms. You were smiling. That's not a reason. It was for me. I looked at her. She continued reluctantly. You had been arguing with me all morning about the foundation budget. You cut the youth program. I delayed it. You called it non-essential. The financial projections were weak. I told you children weren't projections. You were disrespectful. You approved the funding because your revised plan was effective. You approved it because you felt guilty. That is not relevant. I held up the photograph. You kept this because I was smiling at you. You weren't smiling at me. I remember the day. You were standing behind the photographer. Vivian looked away. You sat here. Vivian. Yes. You took this from communications? I requested a copy. How many photographs of me are in this box? She did not answer. I began sorting through them. Me at a holiday party. Me speaking at a foundation meeting. Me carrying coffee into her office. Me asleep in the back of a car. I held up the last one. You photographed me while I was sleeping? Victor did. Why? I asked him to. Why? You had not slept in 30 hours. That still doesn't explain it. Vivian reached for the photograph. I held it away. No. Explain. Her cheeks became faintly pink. You looked peaceful. The room became very quiet. I lowered the photograph. When did you start collecting these? Before the contract. How long before? 11 months. My heartbeat changed. Before Seattle? Yes. What happened 11 months before? Vivian looked down at the box. The elevator. I remembered immediately. Sterling headquarters had lost power during a summer storm. Vivian and I had been trapped in an elevator between floors for nearly 40 minutes. She had pretended not to care. Then the emergency lights had flickered out. In the dark, she had reached for my hand. She never admitted being afraid. I never mentioned that she had held on until the doors opened. You hated elevators for months afterward. I said, I disliked that elevator. You made the company replace every control system. They were outdated. You called me 3 times the next week to attend meetings on your floor. You had relevant information. Once, the meeting was about office furniture. You had used furniture. I laughed. Vivian did not. She looked nervous again. That was when? I asked. Yes. When you fell in love with me? I didn't understand it as love. What did you understand? That I wanted you near me. You could have asked me to dinner. I did. I frowned. When? The board dinner in October. That was work. I seated you beside me. You said it was because I understood the restructuring plan. You did. That is not asking someone to dinner. I invited you to Aspen for a conference. I arranged your room beside mine. I thought the hotel made a mistake. I paid them to move you. You said here. Vivian looked increasingly uncomfortable. You manipulated a hotel reservation because you wanted me close? I did not manipulate it. I requested a change. Using money. That is how hotels operate. I cover my mouth with one hand. All those years, every small coincidence, every late meeting, every seat beside her at public events. I had thought I was imagining meaning where none existed. There had been meaning. Vivian had simply buried it beneath logistics. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. I tried. No, you invited me to business dinners and moved hotel rooms. That was trying. That was administrative stalking. Her eyes narrowed. It was not stalking. You have a box of secret photographs. They were company photographs. One was taken while I slept. Victor is trained. That does not make it better. Vivian looked offended. Then I laughed. Really laughed. She stared at me. What is funny? You. I am confessing something difficult. I know. And you are laughing. I spent 3 years believing I invented every sign that you cared. Her anger disappeared. I placed the photograph back into the box. You loved me before you asked me to marry you. Yes. How long? Approximately 14 months. You know the exact date. She hesitated. July 17th. Of course you do. It was raining. The elevator incident was in August. I noticed you before that. My smile faded. What happened July 17th? Vivian removed a folded piece of paper from the bottom of the box. She handed it to me. It was a copy of an email I had sent to the executive office after a company meeting. The email objected to a proposed layoff plan. I had written that the cuts would save money but destroy the people expected to execute the recovery. I had been furious. Young enough to think bluntness was courage. I looked at Vivian. You almost fired me for this. I considered it. You called me reckless. You copied 6 executives. You were wrong. I know. The admission surprised me. She touched the edge of the paper. Everyone else agreed with me. They were afraid of you. You weren't. I was. I just thought the plan was worse. That was when. When what? When I realized you would tell me the truth even if it cost you. I remembered Vivian entering my office the next day. She had stood beside my desk and said, "Your analysis is emotionally phrased and professionally inappropriate." Then she canceled the layoffs. I thought you hated me. I said. I went home and read the email 7 times. Why? Because no one had spoken to me that way since my mother died. The room changed. Vivian rarely mentioned her mother. She had died when Vivian was 19. Her father remarried 6 months later and treated grief like an inconvenience that delayed business. Vivian had learned never to need comfort in public. You kept the email, I said. Yes, because I argued with you. Because you believed I could be better than the decision I had made. That answer took away every joke I might have used. I folded the email carefully. Then why the contract? Vivian stepped closer to the desk. Because by the time the trust issue became urgent, my father had already introduced me to 3 possible husbands. I remember. One wanted a board seat. One wanted access to the family foundation. One wanted the sterling name for his political campaign. And you wanted none of them. I wanted you. The words were immediate. Steady. My chest tightened. You could have asked. I was afraid of me saying no. Yes, Vivian, you offered me enough money to solve every problem in my life. That was part of the fear. What do you mean? If I asked you without a contract, I would never know why you agreed. I stared at her. She continued. If you said yes because you needed money, I could survive that. The terms would explain it. But if I said yes because I wanted you, then I would have something real to lose. The logic was painful. Wrong. Completely, Vivian. So you created a marriage where neither of us could admit what we wanted. Yes. You wrote a clause prohibiting emotional claims. Yes. While you were already in love with me. Yes, that may be the stupidest decision you've ever made. I am aware, and I married you while already falling in love. I know. So we spent 3 years loving each other from separate bedrooms because we were both afraid the other person only wanted the deal. Yes. I stared at her for several seconds. Then I said, "We're idiots." Vivian's lips moved. "We are highly functional in other areas." No, this was extraordinary. I had limited experience. So did I. You could have confessed. You made me sign a document saying I couldn't. You challenged contracts constantly, not marriage contracts written by the woman I loved. Vivian came around the desk. She stopped in front of me. I should have told you. Yes, I should never have put the papers on the breakfast table. No, I thought you would object. I thought you wanted me gone. I wanted you to fight. I wanted you to ask. Neither of us spoke. There it was. The whole failure in 2 sentences. She wanted me to fight. I wanted her to ask. We both waited. Then I left. Vivian looked down. I didn't prepare the divorce papers because I wanted freedom. Why did you? Because the contract ended. That isn't an answer. It was the only future we had discussed. You could have proposed a different one. I tried with the amendments. You hid them in legal documents. I know. Why didn't you just say you wanted me? Her voice became quiet. Because every person I loved before you eventually chose something else. I stopped. My father chose the company, Vivian. My mother chose silence until it made her ill. My stepmother chose influence. Every man introduced to me chose what my name could give him. She looked directly at me. You were the first person who never asked me for anything. That should have made it easier. It made it terrifying. I understood then. Vivian had not doubted my love because I failed to show it. She doubted it because she had no experience trusting anything that did not demand payment. You thought I would eventually realize the contract wasn't worth it. I said, yes, and leave. Yes. So you ended it first? Her expression tightened. I gave you the papers before you could ask for them. I nodded slowly. It was not cruelty. It was self-defense. That did not erase what it had done to me, but it made the wound easier to understand. I stepped closer. Vivian did not move. You should have trusted me. I know. I should have spoken sooner. You were honoring the agreement. I was hiding behind it too. Her eyes searched mine. Why? Because being your temporary husband felt safer than risking becoming no one to you. Vivian reached for my hand. This time she did not stop. Her fingers closed around mine. You were never no one. I know that now. Do you? I'm trying. The answer made her smile sadly. I suppose I deserve that. This isn't about what you deserve. What is it about? What we can actually build after this. Hope appeared in her eyes. You still think we can? I came back for one night. I'm standing in your office holding your hand. That is also temporary. You need to stop measuring everything by how long it lasts. I don't know how. Neither do I. I looked down at our hands, but we could learn. Vivian's breath caught. Together, the single word held more vulnerability than any confession she had made. I nodded. Together. She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were wet. Vivian looked irritated by the tears. Don't. I said. Don't what? Pretend you're not crying. I dislike crying. Most people do. It is physically inefficient. I smiled. There she is. She tried to look angry. It failed. I reached up and wiped a tear from her cheek. Vivian leaned into my hand before she could stop herself. The movement was small, instinctive. I left my palm against her face. I love you, she said. I love you too. I loved you when I offered the contract. I know. I loved you every morning you made coffee. I know. I loved you when you signed the divorce papers. That was poor timing. I know. I laughed softly. Then Vivian's expression became serious. I still don't want you to go to London. I know, but I will not use the company to stop you. Good. I will not ask Robert to examine the employment contract. Very good. I will not purchase Mercer Systems. I stared at her. You considered that? Briefly. Vivian. I rejected the idea. Because it was unethical? Because you would be angry. That is not the correct reason. It produced the correct outcome. I shook my head. You have a lot to learn. I have already read 2 books. That may not be enough. I can read more. I'm sure you will. She looked at the box. Is this a reason to stay? I knew what she meant. The truth. The history. The proof that our marriage had not been one-sided. I wanted to tell her yes. I wanted to make the decision simple. But love had already made too many decisions for me before I understood the cost. It's a reason to believe you. I said. Vivian's face fell slightly. That isn't the same. No. What else do you need? A reason to believe we can have a life where neither of us disappears inside the other person. She considered that. You think you disappeared. I built my schedule around you, my career around the marriage, my friendships around your public life. I never asked you to. No, I volunteered. That makes it worse. It makes it our responsibility to change. Vivian nodded slowly. What would that look like? I don't know yet. Would you return to New York? Maybe. Would you work for Sterling again? No. Her expression tightened. That was quick. I need something that belongs to me. I understand. Do you? I don't like it. That wasn't the question. Yes, she said. I understand. I squeezed her hand. That's a start. We spent the next hour going through the box. Every object contained a part of our history I had misunderstood. A receipt from the restaurant where Vivian had ordered my favorite dessert and claimed the kitchen sent it by mistake. A copy of the speech I gave at the foundation gala, covered in her handwritten notes. A train ticket from the weekend she followed me to Connecticut after my sister's surgery, but stayed at another hotel because she was afraid of intruding. A grocery list in my handwriting that she had found in one of her coat pockets and kept for 2 years. I held it up. This is literally a list of vegetables. You drew a face beside broccoli. I was bored. It was funny. You kept it. Yes. I looked at the box. You kept everything. Not everything. What did you throw away? The first anniversary gift I bought you. I froze. You bought me a gift? A watch. You gave me a watch on our second anniversary. That was the second one. What happened to the first? I decided it was too personal. What kind of watch was it? Vintage. You bought me the 1968 Omega from the Madison auction. Vivian looked surprised. How did you know? I saw it disappear from the catalog. You remember? I wanted it. I know. How? You stared at it for 4 minutes. You bought it. Yes. And threw it away? I returned it. Why didn't you give it to me? Because gifts were not required. I groaned and covered my face. We are absolute idiots. Vivian touched my wrist. I could find it again. That's not the point. I know. You keep saying that. I know many things after they are explained. I lowered my hands. She was smiling. Not widely, but openly. I stepped closer. Are you making fun of me? A little. That is also progress. I read humor creates intimacy. Please stop quoting articles. All right. She was still holding my wrist. I looked at her mouth. Vivian noticed. Her smile faded. The air changed. We had kissed before. At our wedding, briefly and politely. At public events, when photographers asked. Once, by accident. In the hallway when we both turned at the same time. Those kisses had been explained away. This one would not be. May I kiss you? She asked. My heart tightened. You don't usually ask. I am learning boundaries. That book is working. Ethan. Yes. Her hand moved from my wrist to my chest. Yes, you may. Vivian leaned forward. The first touch of her lips was careful, almost uncertain. Then I placed one hand at her waist and pulled her closer. She exhaled against my mouth. The kiss deepened. 3 years of restraint disappeared in seconds. Vivian gripped the front of my shirt. I held her against me, feeling the tension leave her body as she stopped trying to control the moment. When we finally separated, she remained close enough that our foreheads touched. That was not like the wedding, she whispered. No, I prefer this. So do I. Can we do it again? I smiled. You're very direct now. I'm practicing. I kissed her before she could say anything else. The second kiss was slower, less desperate, more dangerous, because it felt like something that could become ordinary. Something we might do in kitchens, elevators, doorways before work. A real marriage built from moments no one photographed. When I pulled back, Vivian looked almost dazed. I have another question, she said. That sounds ominous. Will you sleep in my room tonight? I went still. Vivian immediately continued. Only sleep. I know. You can say no. I know. I will not interpret it as rejection of the entire relationship. You practiced that sentence. Yes. I looked toward the hallway. Our bedrooms had been separated by less than 20 feet for 3 years. It had often felt like a continent. Why? I asked. Because I haven't slept properly since you left. That isn't a healthy reason. Because I want you beside me. Better. Still not enough. Vivian understood from my expression. And because, she added, I want to wake up and know you chose to be there. That was enough. One night, I said. Her fingers tightened against my shirt. One night. No assumptions about tomorrow. I understand. And no waking me at 5 for investor calls. I never take calls in bed. You took one on our honeymoon. It was an emergency. A board member changed the presentation font. It was Comic Sans. That does qualify. Vivian smiled. We left the office together. At the end of the hallway, I stopped outside my old room. The wedding ring still waited beside the lamp. Vivian followed my gaze. You don't have to wear it, she said. I know. I picked it up. Her breathing changed. I turned the band between my fingers. Then I placed it in my pocket. Not on my hand. Not yet, but no longer abandoned beside the bed. Vivian understood. Her eyes filled again. This is becoming excessive, she muttered. What is? The crying. You're doing fine. I am not. You are. I took her hand and led her toward her bedroom. That night, Vivian lay beside me without speaking. For the first 10 minutes, she remained perfectly still. I could feel her thinking. Stop counting. I said, I'm not counting. You're counting how long I've been here. 11 minutes. I turned toward her. Moonlight from the windows outlined her face. You can sleep. What if I wake up and you're gone? I won't leave without telling you. That is not the same as staying. No. She looked at me, but it's the truth. Vivian nodded. After a moment, she moved closer. May I? Yes. She rested her head against my chest. My arm went around her. Within minutes, her breathing slowed. I stayed awake longer, not because I wanted to leave, because lying there felt too much like the future I had once stopped believing we could have. The London offer remained unanswered. My apartment waited in Boston. Our marriage was still legally intact and emotionally under construction. Nothing was solved, but Vivian slept against me with one hand closed around the fabric of my shirt. For once, she was not holding me through a contract. She was simply trusting that I would still be there when morning came. And when the sun rose, I I woke before Vivian. That had never happened during our marriage. For 3 years, she had treated sleep like an inefficient habit and mornings like a competition she intended to win. She was usually awake before 5, reading overnight reports with the brightness on her phone turned low enough to pretend she wasn't working. That morning, she slept against my chest until 7:17. I knew the exact time because her alarm had been vibrating on the nightstand for almost a minute. Vivian did not move. I reached over and turned it off. She tightened her hand around my shirt. 5 more minutes, she murmured. I looked down at her. Who are you? And what have you done with my wife? Her eyes remained closed. I'm not speaking to you. You're holding me hostage. You agreed to stay for one night. Her eyes opened immediately. The softness disappeared. Only for a second. Then she remembered where we were. You're still here, she said. I told you I would be. Vivian looked toward the window, as if confirming that morning had actually arrived. Then she released my shirt. Good. The word was casual. Her expression was not. I sat up. Vivian followed, pulling the blanket around herself. Her hair was tangled, her face unguarded, and for the first time I could remember, she did not immediately reach for her phone. You have an investor call, I said. Canceled. I turned toward her. You canceled an investor call? Moved. To when? Monday. It's Saturday. Yes. You moved business to protect the weekend? She frowned. You said relationships require protected time. Which article was that? A book. Claire is becoming dangerous. She highlighted the chapter. I smiled. Vivian leaned against the headboard. Are you leaving today? The question sounded careful. Yes. Her gaze dropped. My train is at 4. I added. She looked up. So you'll stay for breakfast? Yes. And lunch. If you're pleasant, I am always pleasant. You once made a waiter cry over sparkling water. He served still water in the wrong bottle. There she is. Her mouth moved slightly. I reached for my phone. 23 unread messages. Most were work. One was from Daniel. Need your decision on London by noon Monday. The European board is pushing for an immediate start. A second message had arrived 10 minutes later. They want you in London within 3 weeks. I stared at the screen. Vivian noticed. What happened? Nothing. That is not your nothing face. I have a nothing face? You press your lips together. I do that when I'm reading. You also stop breathing. I'm breathing. Less efficiently. I looked at her. She held out her hand. May I see? The question surprised me. During our marriage, Vivian would have asked what happened until I answered. If I refused, she would have found out through other means. Now she waited. I handed her the phone. She read Daniel's messages. Her expression did not change. That worried me more than anger would have. When do you have to decide? She asked. Monday. And they want you there in 3 weeks. Yes, that is fast. It's a leadership role. They need someone before the next product cycle. Vivian returned the phone. Do you want to go? I don't know. That means part of you does. Yes. She nodded. No argument. No immediate proposal to open a London office. No suggestion that she could buy Mercer. I almost wish she would fight. Her restraint made the possibility feel more real. We should have breakfast, she said. That's all. What else should I say? I don't know. You told me not to pressure you. I did. You asked me to let the choice remain yours. I know. So I am. Her voice was controlled, but she had started twisting the edge of the blanket around her fingers. I took her hand. Vivian looked down. You can tell me you don't want me to go. I said, I already have. You can say it again. She raised her eyes. I don't want you to go. Why? Her fingers tightened around mine. Because I love you. Not because you're afraid of an empty apartment. I am afraid of that. Vivian, I'm trying to be honest. I waited. She took a breath. I don't want you to go because I want ordinary mornings like this. I want you to complain about my alarms. I want to make coffee badly until I learn. I want to know what you look like when you come home from work instead of receiving a schedule from your assistant. I don't have an assistant. Exactly. I almost smiled. Vivian continued. I want to date you. I want to fight with you about groceries. I want to travel somewhere without a bored dinner. I want to know whether you snore every night or only when you're tired. I do not snore. You did last night. That was your heating system. You were making the sound. It's an old building. This building is 12 years old. It's aging badly. Vivian's lips curved. Then her expression became serious again. I want you here because I want a life with you, she said. Not because you organize mine. That was the answer I needed. It was also the answer that made the decision harder. I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. Vivian watched me. That is not a decision, she said. No. Was it intended to distract me? Yes. It was partially effective. I laughed. We had breakfast in the kitchen. Mrs. Alvarez pretended not to notice that we arrived together. She failed. She placed pancakes in front of Vivian and eggs in front of me, then crossed herself quietly before leaving the room. Vivian looked after her. What was that? She thinks she witnessed a miracle. I have eaten pancakes before. She's not reacting to the pancakes. Vivian poured syrup onto her bacon. She is becoming intrusive. She missed me. So did I. The directness still caught me off guard. I looked at her. Vivian lifted her coffee. I can say it now. I noticed. You should try becoming less surprised. That may take time. I can wait. The sentence sounded simple, but Vivian Sterling had never waited for anything she could force into motion. I smiled. She watched my face. What? You're different. Her expression tightened. Is that bad? No. I am still the same person. I know. I don't intend to become someone agreeable simply to keep you. Good. I'd become suspicious. I will still argue. I'm counting on it. I may occasionally investigate obvious security risks. No. Fine. You were negotiating. It was worth attempting. I shook my head. Vivian looked pleased. For an hour, the London decision disappeared. Then my phone rang. Daniel. I considered ignoring it. Vivian noticed the name. Answer. It's Saturday. It may be important. It's about London. I know. I stood and walked toward the window. Vivian remained at the counter. I answered. Morning. Sorry. Daniel said. The board changed the timeline. That sounds promising. They need an answer today. I looked back at Vivian. She was watching me, her expression unreadable. Why? The current director resigned last night. London wants to announce the replacement Monday morning. You said I had until Monday. I know. And now, 6 tonight. I checked the clock. 9:40. That's not enough time. I argued. And they're prepared to improve the offer. Money isn't the problem. What is? I looked at Vivian. She turned away and began collecting breakfast plates she had not finished. My life. I said. Daniel was quiet. Then he lowered his voice. I know this isn't my business, but don't reject a career opportunity because your marriage is unstable. I'm aware, and don't accept it just because leaving feels cleaner. I closed my eyes. You sound irritatingly reasonable. My wife says it's my worst quality. I'll call you before 6. You need to sign electronically. I understand. I ended the call. Vivian was carrying the plates toward the sink. I crossed the kitchen and took them from her. You don't do dishes. I understand the concept. You once put liquid soap in the dishwasher. The labels were unclear. The bottle had a picture of a hand. I thought it indicated safety. I placed the plates on the counter. They need an answer by 6. Vivian became still. Today. Yes. She looked toward the clock. Then she nodded. You should return to Boston earlier. What? Your train is at 4. You need time to think. I can think here. You'll be thinking about my reaction. That's part of the decision. It shouldn't be the entire decision. It isn't. Vivian walked toward the hallway. I'll have the car take you to the station. It's not even 10. You need space. I followed her. Do you want me to leave? She stopped. Her back remained toward me. No. Then don't push me out because you're afraid I'll resent staying. Her shoulders tightened. That is not what I'm doing. It is. She turned. I will not become the reason you reject something you want. What if you're part of the reason? That is different. How? Because I don't trust your reasons. You still have to hear. The words hit harder than she intended. Vivian saw it. I don't mean I don't trust you. That sounded exactly like it. I mean you spent 3 years sacrificing things without telling me. That was my choice. It was your habit. So now what? Every decision that involves you is automatically unhealthy. No, it sounds like that. Vivian's expression became frustrated. I'm trying to protect you from me. I didn't ask you to. You asked me not to control your future. That does not mean removing yourself from it. She looked away. I stepped closer. Say what you're actually thinking. You should go. That isn't what you're thinking. You should accept London. Vivian, it is an excellent role. You hate it. Yes. Then why are you telling me to take it? Because you said you wanted something that belonged to you. I already have that. Mercer, my career, my apartment, my choices. London is more. More is not always better. Her jaw tightened. That sounds like something people say when they are afraid. I am afraid. The admission silenced her. I continued. I'm afraid that if I stay, we'll become what we were. I'm afraid that if I go, I'll destroy the first real chance we've had. I'm afraid I'm using the job to avoid deciding whether I can trust this marriage again. Vivian's eyes softened. I'm afraid too. Of what? That you'll stay and regret me. There it was. The real fear. Not that I would leave. That I would remain and blame her. I reached for her hands. Vivian, let me take them. I won't make the decision for you, she said. I know. I won't ask you to choose me. You already asked me to come home. Her expression changed. I asked you to visit. No. You wrote come home. That was careless wording. You do not use careless wording. She looked down. I wanted it to still be your home. It is. Her eyes lifted. I looked around the hallway. The photographs, the room filled with my books, my ring waiting beside the bed, Mrs. Alvarez crying in the lobby, Vivian waking with her hand wrapped around my shirt. It is, I repeated, but that doesn't mean I'm ready to move back. I understand. Do you? No, she admitted, but I'm trying to. I squeezed her hands. I need a few hours. You should take them. I'm going for a walk. Alone. Yes. Her instinct to object appeared immediately. She stopped herself. All right. I picked up my coat. At the door, Vivian said, Ethan. I turned. I love you. She had begun saying it as though she wanted the words to become part of our daily language. I love you too, and I still hate London. I know. I left before either of us could make the conversation easier with promises we might not keep. I walked for almost 2 hours, through Central Park, past the cafe where Vivian and I had once pretended to have a spontaneous lunch for a magazine profile, past the bookstore where I had bought her a mystery novel and hidden it inside an economics journal so she wouldn't accuse me of choosing something frivolous. Past the jewelry store where I had almost purchased her an anniversary bracelet. Every part of the city contained a version of us that had nearly become real. My phone remained in my pocket. I did not make a list. I did not compare salaries, housing costs, or career growth. I asked myself one question. If Vivian did not exist, would I accept London? The answer was yes. Then I asked another, if London did not exist, would I want to rebuild my marriage? The answer was also yes. That was the problem. Both futures were real. One offered ambition, the other offered home. I returned to the penthouse shortly after noon. The apartment was silent. Too silent. Vivian? No answer. I checked the kitchen. Empty. Her office door was open. Her laptop sat on the desk displaying a half-written email. I walked inside. Vivian? A glass lay broken near the bookshelf. My heartbeat changed. I found her on the floor beside the sofa. She was conscious, but barely. Her face was pale, one hand pressed against her stomach. I dropped beside her. Vivian. Her eyes opened. You came back. What happened? Nothing. You're on the floor. I became dizzy. When did you last eat? Breakfast. You barely touched it. I wasn't hungry. I touched her forehead. She was burning. How long have you felt sick? I'm fine. Do not say that. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Vivian blinked. I slid one arm behind her back and another beneath her knees. I can stand. No, Ethan. Stop arguing. I lifted her. She leaned against me immediately. That frightened me more than resistance would have. Vivian never accepted help without debate. Hospital. I said, no, you may have a fever. I have a board call at 1. You are not taking a board call. They're reviewing the European acquisition. I don't care. That is irresponsible. I resigned from Sterling. You were not in that division. I still don't care. I carried her toward the bedroom. Vivian gripped my coat. Don't leave. I'm not leaving. You have to decide. London can wait. No. Her voice became urgent. You cannot use this to decide. I'm not. You are. I placed her on the bed. Vivian tried to sit up. I pushed her gently back against the pillows. I'm calling a doctor. Dr. Bennett is in Connecticut. Then I'll call someone else. No hospitals. Why? I hate them. I knew that. Her mother had spent her final months moving between private clinics and hospital rooms. Vivian rarely visited anyone who was ill because the smell of antiseptic made her hands shake. You sat beside her. Then a doctor comes here. She closed her eyes. All right. I called Robert because he had every private physician in New York on speed dial. He answered on the first ring. Mr. Carter. Vivian collapsed. His tone changed immediately. Is she conscious? Yes. Fever. Dizzy. Possible abdominal pain. I'll contact Dr. Bennett. She's in Connecticut. She has a helicopter arrangement. I looked at Vivian. Of course she does. Robert ignored that. Keep Ms. Sterling awake. She's already trying to schedule a board call. That is encouraging. I disagree. I'll call you back. He hung up. I removed Vivian's shoes and pulled the blanket over her. She watched me through half-closed eyes. You're angry. I'm terrified. Her expression softened. I'm sorry. How long have you been feeling unwell? A few days. Before Boston? Yes. You flew while sick. I had things to do. You have assistants. They could not fix our marriage. And collapsing alone was part of the plan? I didn't plan that. I took her hand. Her fingers were too warm. You haven't been eating. I ate with you. When I was present, she said nothing. Claire told me you'd been skipping meals. I was busy. You've been flying between New York and Boston, running the company, reading relationship books, and pretending your body doesn't exist. I was trying. At what? To become someone worth staying for. The sentence broke something inside me. I leaned closer. You do not have to earn love by destroying yourself. Vivian looked away. You told me to give you a reason. I didn't mean this. What did you mean? I wanted to see that you could make space for me. I did. No. You turned me into another task, and pushed yourself until you collapsed. Her eyes filled. That is not fair. It's true. I didn't know another way. I lowered my voice. Then let me show you. How? By staying here because I want to, not because you worked hard enough to deserve it. Her gaze returned to mine. You're staying? Right now? Yes. Because I'm sick. Because you're my wife. You said that title wasn't enough. It isn't. I brought her hand to my chest. I'm here because I love you. The marriage is why I have the legal right to argue with your doctor. That almost made her smile. Almost. You should answer London first, she whispered. I have 6 hours. You should not waste them watching me sleep. I've wasted time in worse meetings. Ethan, I'm not making the decision until I know you're all right. That means my illness is affecting the decision. Everything affects decisions. She tried to pull her hand away. I held on. Vivian, stop. You'll resent me. No, you don't know that. I know I will resent you if you turn this into another reason to push me away. She stared at me. Then her strength disappeared. I don't want you to go. I know. I'm trying to be good about it. You don't have to be good. That contradicts everything you said. No, you cannot control me. You are allowed to want me. Her eyes closed briefly. I want you. I know. I want you here every morning. I know. I want your clothes back in the closet. I know. I want you to complain about the refrigerator. It still makes that noise? Yes. That is concerning. She let out a weak laugh. Then her face tightened in pain. I reached for my phone. Doctor, now. Dr. Bennett arrived 40 minutes later with 2 nurses and enough equipment to convert the bedroom into a private clinic. The diagnosis was less dramatic than I feared and more serious than Vivian admitted. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, a stomach infection made worse by stress and irregular meals. No office for 48 hours. Dr. Bennett said. Vivian frowned from the bed. That is impossible. It is medical advice. I have responsibilities. You also have an 4 in your arm. I can take calls? No. Vivian looked at me. I folded my arms. Don't involve him. Dr. Bennett smiled. I didn't. You looked at him. He appears sensible. He is emotionally compromised. I'm sitting right here. I said. Vivian ignored me. Dr. Bennett closed her medical bag. If you refuse to rest, I will admit you to the hospital. Vivian became silent. The doctor knew exactly where to apply pressure. No hospital, she said. Then sleep. After the doctor left, I sat in the chair beside the bed. Vivian looked toward the clock. It was nearly 3. You should go somewhere else to decide. No, I will sleep. Good. You don't need to watch. I know. Then why are you? Because last time you said you were fine. You tried to open soup with a letter opener. That happened once. One time is enough. Her eyes closed. Within minutes, she was asleep. I opened my laptop. The London contract waited in my inbox. I read every page. The role was everything I had worked toward. Authority, autonomy, a team I could build myself. No connection to Sterling. No one assuming I had succeeded because of my wife. I imagined an apartment in London, rain against the windows, a new office, a life with Vivian visiting twice a month, arriving exhausted after overnight flights, and pretending the distance was manageable. I imagined myself calling her after meetings, calculating time zones, missing breakfasts and ordinary arguments. It could work. People made long-distance marriages work every day. But I did not want a marriage built around departures. Not again. That realization did not automatically mean rejecting the job. I could ask Mercer to delay, negotiate a hybrid role, split time between New York and London. But would I be choosing that because I wanted both? Or because I was still trying to make myself useful enough to belong everywhere? Vivian moved in her sleep. Her hands searched across the mattress. I stood and placed mine in it. She settled immediately. That answered something. Not everything, but something. At 5:30, my phone rang. Daniel. I stepped into the hallway, leaving the bedroom door open. I need your answer, he said. I know. The board call starts in 30 minutes. I looked through the doorway. Vivian slept with my handkerchief folded beneath her cheek, because she said hospital-style pillows were uncomfortable. I can't accept the London role as written. Daniel was silent. As written, I want to propose an alternative. What kind? I'll lead the European division, but I remain based in New York. Daniel exhaled. They want someone physically present. I'll spend 1 week a month in London for the first 6 months. 2 if necessary during launch periods. I'll build a local leadership team instead of making the division dependent on me. They may reject that. I know. The salary would change. That's fine. The title might too. That's also fine. Daniel paused. Are you sure? No. That's reassuring. I smiled faintly. I want the work. I don't want to relocate. Because of Vivian? Partly. Is that healthy? It's honest. He was quiet for several seconds. Then he said, send me the proposal in 20 minutes. I already drafted it. You planned this. I was waiting to understand why. And now, I looked at the bedroom. Now I know I don't want freedom if I only define it as distance from the person I love. Daniel sighed. That was disturbingly emotional. I've had a difficult week. I'll take it to the board. If they say no, they say no. You're prepared to lose the role? Yes. Why? Because the job belongs to me only if I can choose the shape of it. Daniel was silent again. Then he laughed. You sound like a man who finally learned how to negotiate. I married an expert. I thought she used contracts to avoid feelings. She's improving. So are you. We ended the call. When I returned to the bedroom, Vivian was awake. You rejected London, she said. I proposed a different arrangement. You heard. The door was open. You should be sleeping. You said New York. Yes. Her eyes filled immediately. You sat beside her. This is not me sacrificing my career. You changed the role because I want the work without abandoning the life I'm trying to build. With me. With you. She closed her eyes. A tear moved toward her temple. I wiped it away. You need to stop doing that, she murmured. Crying. Making me cry. You're sick. It doesn't count. It counts. I took her hand. The board may reject my proposal. What happens then? I stay at Mercer in Boston. And us? We keep dating. You'll commute. We both will. Vivian frowned. That sounds inefficient. Relationships often are. I'm beginning to hate that phrase. I know. She studied my face. You are not moving back today. No. The disappointment was immediate. But I'm not returning to Boston tonight, I added. Her expression changed. You'll stay until you're better. Because I'm sick. Because I want to. She tightened her grip on my hand. What happens after? We decide together. You said the choice had to be yours. My career choice is mine. Our marriage belongs to both of us. Vivian stared at me as though I had given her something fragile. Then she whispered, come home. I looked at her. She swallowed. Not because I'm ill. Not because I'm lonely. Not because the apartment is too quiet. Her voice trembled. Come home because I love you. Because I want to learn how to be your wife without needing a contract. Because I want you to have a life that belongs to you and still choose to share it with me. I didn't answer immediately. Vivian's fear returned. You can say no. I know. I will survive it. That sounded rehearsed. It was. I smiled. Then I reached into my pocket. The wedding ring had been there since the night before. Vivian's breathing stopped when she saw it. I turned the band between my fingers. This ring belonged to the contract, I said. Her face fell slightly. To the marriage we performed. To 3 years of rules and assumptions. I understand. I don't want that marriage back. Her eyes lowered. I lifted her left hand. But I want the one we haven't had yet. Vivian looked up. I slid the ring onto my finger. It felt strange, then familiar, then right. Her lips parted. Ethan, I'm coming home. She stared at the ring. Today. Technically, I never checked out of the guest room. That is not what I meant. I know. I leaned closer. Not all at once. My apartment remains mine. I stay at Mercer. We date. We go to counseling. You rejected the counseling contract. I rejected the contract. The counselor was a good idea. Vivian nodded quickly. Yes. We learn to argue without legal representation. That may be difficult. You'll manage. And your clothes? I'll bring some back. How many? Vivian, I need basic information. I laughed. Enough. Her hand reached toward my face. She stopped. May I? You don't have to ask every time. The books disagree. The books are not married to me. She touched my cheek. Her fingers were still warm from the fever. I'm afraid this is temporary, she said. Everything is temporary if you measure it one day at a time. That is not reassuring. Then stop measuring. I don't know how. I covered her hand with mine. Start with today. Today you came home. Yes. And tomorrow? I'll still be here. Her eyes closed briefly. And Monday? We have counseling. You already booked it? Claire did. Vivian opened her eyes. Claire booked counseling? She sent me 3 options while you were sleeping. She is becoming unmanageable. She loves you. I know. Do you? Vivian looked toward the open bedroom door, toward the apartment full of people who had worried when she stopped answering. Claire, Robert, Mrs. Alvarez, me. I'm learning, she said. I kissed her forehead. Good. That evening, Mercer's European board accepted my proposal. The title changed slightly. The salary decreased. The role remained mine. I would travel to London 1 week each month and build a local team capable of functioning without me. For the first time in years, I had made a professional choice that neither erased my marriage nor surrendered to it. When I told Vivian, she smiled. Then she asked for the entire travel schedule. I refused. She said that was unreasonable. I said it was romantic. She said I misunderstood romance. I reminded her she once hid affection inside a divorce amendment. She stopped arguing. 2 days later, When her fever broke, I returned to Boston to pack. Vivian came with me. She did not send movers. She did not order the entire building inspected. She carried one box of books down 4 flights of stairs while complaining that ordinary buildings needed elevators. Nora met us in the hallway. She looked at the boxes. So the complicated wife won? Vivian adjusted her grip on the box. This was not a competition. Nora looked at me. She definitely thinks it was. I know. Vivian narrowed her eyes. Nora handed her the blue chili bowl. You can take this too. Vivian looked at it. Why? Because Ethan will need dishes at home. Vivian's expression softened slightly. Our home? She said. Nora smiled. That sounds less complicated. Vivian looked at me. I took the box from her before she dropped it. Don't become overconfident. Nora laughed. When we reached the car, Vivian stood beside the open trunk. Do you regret it? She asked. Leaving Boston? Choosing us? I placed the box inside. No. You answered quickly. I've had time to think. How much? 3 years. Her eyes filled. You pointed ahead. Do not cry in the parking lot. I am not crying. You're terrible at lying. I am a highly effective negotiator. Different skill. She smiled. Then she stepped closer and wrapped her arms around me. No photographers. No employees. No contract requiring affection. Just Vivian holding me beside a rented apartment I no longer needed. I held her back. Ready? I asked. For what? To go home. Her arms tightened. Yes. This time, neither of us had to pretend we meant the penthouse. Coming home did not look dramatic. There were no photographers outside the building, no orchestra in the lobby, no assistants waiting with champagne. Vivian and I arrived at the penthouse carrying 4 boxes, 1 suitcase, a blue chili bowl, and a glass penguin wrapped in tissue paper. Mrs. Alvarez opened the door before I used my key. The moment she saw the boxes, she smiled. Then she looked at Vivian. How long this time? Vivian's expression tightened. I answered before she could. As long as we keep choosing it. Mrs. Alvarez nodded slowly. That is a better answer. Vivian glanced at me. I was going to say permanently. That would have sounded confident. It would have been accurate. You can't know that. I dislike uncertainty. I know. Mrs. Alvarez took the blue bowl from my hands. This is ugly. It belongs to Nora. Vivian corrected her immediately. It belonged to Nora. Mrs. Alvarez looked between us. Should I ask? No, we said together. She carried the bowl toward the kitchen. Vivian watched her leave. She approves of you more than me. She watched me clean the coffee machine. You enjoyed that. I enjoy being appreciated. Vivian looked offended. I appreciate you. I know. I gave you flowers. You gave me enough flowers for a funeral. They were romantic. They needed a support beam. You said you liked them. I did. She stepped closer. You're provoking me. A little. Why? Because you're smiling. Vivian tried to stop. She failed. That first evening back, we did not unpack everything. It would have been easy to act as though moving my clothes into the closet solved the past. It didn't. So we started carefully. Half the closet, 1 shelf in the bathroom, a drawer beside the bed. My Boston apartment lease remained active for another month. Vivian hated that. She did not ask me to cancel it early. That mattered. At 7 the following morning, we attended our first marriage counseling session. Vivian selected a therapist named Dr. Hannah Moore after reviewing professional profiles, client ratings, academic publications, and what appeared to be the therapist's property tax history. I discovered the last part while we were waiting outside the office. You investigated our counselor? I performed due diligence. You promised no background checks. That promise concerned your personal acquaintances. She's about to know more about me than most personal acquaintances. Her credentials are legitimate. You checked her property taxes. It indicates financial stability. I stared at her. Vivian looked toward the closed office door. I was nervous. The admission changed my response. I reached for her hand. You could have said that. I just did. More progress. She squeezed my fingers. Then the office door opened. Dr. Moore was in her early 50s, with silver threaded through her dark hair and the calm expression of someone who had already heard every possible version of marital disaster. She invited us inside. 2 chairs sat opposite hers. Vivian looked at them. Are there assigned seats? No, Dr. Moore said. Vivian chose the chair nearest the door. You sat beside her. Dr. Moore opened a notebook. What brings you here? Vivian answered first. Our contract marriage ended, but I prevented the divorce. Dr. Moore looked at me. I nodded. That is technically accurate. Vivian continued. We were in love before the marriage, but neither of us disclosed it. Dr. Moore wrote something down. We also maintained separate bedrooms for 3 years. Vivian said, not because we didn't want each other. I added, because we were both afraid wanting more would break the agreement. Dr. Moore looked between us. That is a strong beginning. Vivian frowned. It was a terrible beginning. I mean your honesty today. Oh. Dr. Moore smiled faintly. Are you still married? Yes. Vivian said. Legally, I added. Vivian looked at me, and emotionally, under construction. That sounds less committed. It sounds honest. Dr. Moore raised one hand. This is useful. Vivian turned toward her. What is? The way you respond to uncertainty. Mrs. Carter. Sterling. Vivian corrected. Dr. Moore glanced at her notes. Vivian Sterling. Yes. And Mr. Carter. Ethan is fine. Vivian looked at me. You let her use your first name. Yes. You told our attorney to call you Mr. Carter. I didn't like him. You attended his daughter's wedding. I still didn't like him. Dr. Moore waited. Vivian noticed and sat straighter. Sorry. No need. You were demonstrating the dynamic. What dynamic? You correct details when you feel exposed. Vivian became completely still. I looked at Dr. Moore. You may be worth the property tax research. Vivian elbowed me. Dr. Moore almost smiled. For the next hour, we discussed the contract, not the legal clauses, the emotional ones we had invented without writing them down. I had assumed Vivian's silence meant rejection. Vivian had assumed my reliability meant I would stay regardless of how little she gave. I had offered care instead of asking for intimacy. She had offered protection instead of admitting need. Every time I wanted something, I tried to become more useful. Every time she wanted something, she tried to make it safer through control. Dr. Moore listened. Then she asked, what do each of you believe love requires? Vivian answered immediately. Consistency. I said, choice. We looked at each other. Dr. Moore nodded. Those answers explain your conflict. Vivian frowned. How? Vivian wants proof that love will remain. Ethan needs proof that love is freely given. I leaned back. That was the cleanest explanation anyone had offered. Vivian looked toward me. I do choose you. I know. But you still keep the Boston lease for one more month. That feels like preparation to leave. It feels like proof I can stay without being trapped. Her expression tightened. Dr. Moore asked, can both things be true? Vivian looked at her. Can the lease make you feel unsafe while making Ethan feel free? Vivian hesitated. Yes. And can he keep it without intending to use it? Yes. I added. I don't intend to use it. Vivian's eyes moved to mine. That helps. Good. Dr. Moore wrote something else. Vivian leaned slightly forward. What did you write? I don't usually share notes. Why? Because they're mine. Vivian looked uncomfortable. I whispered. Boundaries. I know what boundaries are. You attempted to acquire Mercer Systems 3 weeks ago. I rejected the idea. Dr. Moore looked up. You attempted to acquire his employer? Only conceptually. It was brief. I said. Dr. Moore slowly closed her notebook. We may need longer sessions. By the time we left, Vivian looked exhausted. How do you feel? I asked in the elevator. Professionally attacked. She was gentle. She identified several flaws. That's why we're paying her. I expected a more strategic framework. She gave us homework. Vivian removed the paper from her handbag. We were required to schedule 1 hour every evening with no work, no phones, and no discussion of practical matters. Vivian read the instructions again. What do people discuss if practical matters are prohibited? Feelings. That seems excessive for an hour. I laughed. She folded the paper. I will prepare topics. That defeats the purpose. How? You're planning spontaneity. I plan everything. I know. She looked at me. And you still came home. Yes. Why? I touched her cheek. Because I'm beginning to like watching you try. That evening, during our first protected hour, Vivian brought a folder. I stared at it. No, you don't know what it contains. It's a folder. Yes. Dr. Moore explicitly said no practical matters. This is not practical. What is it? Vivian placed the folder on the coffee table. Our original marriage contract. My mood changed. I thought you destroyed every copy. Robert had a certified archive copy. Of course he did. I asked him to release it. Why? Vivian opened the folder. The document looked exactly as it had 3 years earlier. 27 pages. Definitions. Responsibilities. Public conduct requirements. The clause prohibiting emotional claims. My old signature appeared at the end. So did hers. Seeing it again made my chest tighten. What are you planning to do? End it properly. The term already expired. I know. Then it has no legal power. It still has power over us. I looked at her. Vivian lifted the document from the folder. I thought tearing the divorce papers would be enough. It was memorable. It was also illegal according to Robert. I assume he used the phrase destruction of records several times. Did you threaten him? No. Good. I reminded him who pays his retainer. That is a financial threat. It was context. I shook my head. Vivian held the contract between us. This was the first promise we made to each other. It wasn't much of a promise. It was the only kind I knew how to make. I understood. She continued. I don't want it hidden in an archive. I don't want to pretend it never existed. It brought us together. and nearly destroyed us. Yes. What do you want to do with it? Vivian looked toward the fireplace. I followed her gaze. Absolutely not. Her eyebrows lifted. You said tearing documents was dramatic. You want to burn a legal contract in a residential building. The fireplace is functional. This is Manhattan. Nothing in this building is allowed to be functional without 6 permits. I confirmed it is safe. You checked with the building manager. Of course. She stood. I followed. Vivian placed the first page on the grate. I caught her wrist before she reached for the lighter. Wait. Her expression became uncertain. You changed your mind? No. I looked at the contract. I want to read the final clause. Vivian handed it to me. I turned to the last page. Clause 21. Termination. Upon expiration, both parties would return all symbolic items provided for the marriage, including rings. I laughed quietly. What? We failed. How? You kept my ring, you left it, and now I'm wearing it again. Vivian looked at my hand. Yes. So the contract ended, but we violated the termination clause. A small smile appeared. I'm comfortable with that. I tore out the final page. Then I handed the rest back to her. We keep this. Why? As evidence. Of what? That 2 intelligent adults can be unbelievably stupid. Vivian laughed. The sound still felt rare enough to save. We placed the remaining pages in the fireplace. Vivian lit the corner. The flame moved slowly across the paper. Definitions disappeared first, then obligations, then the clause about emotional claims curled into black ash. We watched in silence. When it was gone, Vivian looked at the final page in my hand. No more contracts, she said. For feelings, for us, I'm willing to sign a mortgage. That is different. Counseling forms? Necessary. Travel consent forms? We do not have children. Not yet. The words left me before I could evaluate them. Vivian froze. So did I. The room became very quiet. Not yet, she repeated. I looked at the burned contract. That was hypothetical. You said it naturally. I say many things naturally. You do not mention children naturally. I looked at her. Vivian's expression had softened into something I had never seen before. Not fear. Not hope exactly. Wonder. Do you want children? She asked. Someday. With me? I could have made a joke. For once, I didn't. Yes. Vivian's eyes filled. You pointed ahead. Dr. Moore said emotional openness. She did not say we had to cry every hour. I'm not crying. You're doing it again. She touched beneath one eye. Then she smiled. I want that too. Not now. I know. We are barely surviving protected conversation time. I said someday. Good. How many? Vivian, it is basic information. No planning imaginary children during the first week of reconciliation. She looked toward the final page. I could make a preliminary. Nos precios. I was going to say lists. No lists. You are being restrictive. I'm setting a boundary. Vivian narrowed her eyes. You enjoy using that word. Very much. Our protected hour lasted 2 hours. We talked about children, then about places we wanted to travel. Vivian admitted she had never taken a vacation without at least one work meeting. I admitted I wanted to spend a month driving across the country, stopping wherever we wanted. She looked horrified by the lack of reservations. Then she asked what kind of vehicle we would use. That was Vivian's version of agreement. The following weeks were not perfect. They were better. There was a difference. Vivian still checked her phone during dinner twice. The first time, I pointed at it. She apologized and put it away. The second time, she said the message concerned a potential lawsuit. I asked whether anyone was dying. She said no. I placed the phone in the refrigerator. She threatened to fire me. I reminded her I no longer worked for her. She said that continued to be inconvenient. We argued about my London travel schedule. Vivian wanted daily calls at precisely 10 in the evening. I told her some meetings would run late. She asked for location sharing. I said no. She asked whether sharing only during international travel counted as a compromise. I said we could discuss it in counseling. She called that a bureaucratic delay. I called it growth. When I traveled to London for the first time, Vivian did not come to the airport. She wanted to. I asked her not to. I need to know we can say goodbye without turning it into abandonment. I told her. She hated the idea. She agreed. At the penthouse door, she adjusted my tie 3 times. You have your passport? Yes. Laptop? Yes. Medication? I'm not sick. Basic painkillers? Yes. Emergency contacts? You are my emergency contact. Her hand stopped at my collar. That is not funny. It wasn't a joke. She looked up at me. You'll call when you land? Yes. And before sleep? If I'm awake. Ethan. I'll call. She took a breath. I don't want to ask you not to go. You can want that. I do. I know. But I also want you to have this. I kissed her. The kiss lasted long enough to make me consider missing the flight. When we separated, Vivian kept her forehead against mine. I love you, she said. I love you too. Come home. I will. That phrase became ours. Not a command, not a demand, a promise we made each time one of us left. Come home. I always did. 3 months after I moved back, Vivian told me to attend a foundation gala. I said no. She said attendance was mandatory. I reminded her that I was not a Sterling employee. She said spouses had obligations. I told her the contract was ash. She said this was different. It was not different, but she looked unusually nervous. So I agreed. The gala was held at the Sterling Foundation's renovated arts center. When we arrived, I noticed several things immediately. There were fewer guests than normal. No reporters, no investors, no board members I disliked. My sister was there. Claire was there. Daniel and his wife were there. Nora had somehow been invited and was standing near the bar with Mrs. Alvarez. I stopped walking. What is this? Vivian's hand tightened around mine. A foundation event. Nora does not donate to the foundation. She works with children. Daniel lives in Boston. He traveled. My sister is crying. Vivian glanced toward her. She cries easily. She does not. I turned toward Vivian. She looked pale. Are you all right? Yes. You look terrified. I am not terrified. You have your terrified face. I do not have one. You're pressing your lips together and breathing less efficiently. Her eyes narrowed. I regret teaching you my observations. You didn't teach me. I survived you. The lights dimmed. A low murmur moved through the room. Vivian looked toward the small stage at the front. Then she released my hand. Wait here. Why? Please. That word stopped me. Vivian walked onto the stage. Everyone became silent. She stood behind the microphone. For a woman who spoke publicly several times a month, she looked as though she had forgotten every language she knew. Claire stood near the stage holding a tissue. I looked at her. She mouthed, "Be nice." Vivian took a breath. Most of you know Ethan as my husband. Nora called from the back. Complicated husband. Several people laughed. Vivian stared at her. Nora lifted her glass. Vivian returned to the microphone. For 3 years, that title was legally accurate and emotionally incomplete. The room went still. My chest tightened. Vivian continued. Our marriage began with a contract. At the time, I believed rules could protect us from uncertainty. She looked directly at me. I was wrong. A few people glanced at me. I did not look away from her. I thought love was safest when it was controlled. She said, Ethan taught me that love without choice is not security. It is fear wearing professional language. Daniel whispered something to his wife. She elbowed him. Vivian's hands tightened around the sides of the podium. I also believed asking someone to stay made me weak. Her voice shook. She did not stop. Then Ethan left, and I discovered that pretending not to need him did not make me strong. It only made me alone. My sister began crying harder. Mrs. Alvarez handed her a napkin. Vivian stepped away from the podium. She walked toward me. The crowd parted. I looked down and saw the small black box in her hand. My heartbeat changed. Vivian, she stopped in front of me. I researched this extensively. The room laughed softly. I covered my eyes for a second. Of course you did. Claire rejected my first 6 drafts. Claire called out. They sounded like merger proposals. Vivian glanced back. They were clear. They had performance metrics. Claire said, more laughter. Vivian looked at me again. I am trying not to use the prepared speech. That is probably wise. It was 14 pages. I believe you. She took another breath. Then Vivian Sterling lowered herself onto one knee. The entire room disappeared. I stared at her, my ice-cold CEO, my contract wife, the woman who once sent divorce papers to breakfast because asking me to stay felt too dangerous. Now kneeling in front of everyone who mattered. Her hand shook when she opened the box. Inside was a simple platinum ring. No enormous diamond. No family crest. Just a ring. I know we are already married, she said. That is usually an obstacle to proposals. I checked. It is not legally prohibited. I laughed, though my eyes were burning. Vivian continued. The first time, I offered you terms. This time, I have none. Her voice softened. No deadline. No financial arrangement. No promise that we will never hurt each other. She looked up at me. Only a choice. I could not breathe properly. Vivian held the ring toward me. Ethan Carter, will you marry me again? The room was silent. She swallowed. Not because you need me. Her voice shook. Not because I'm afraid to lose you. A tear moved down her cheek. Marry me because you love me. Because you know exactly who I am, including the parts that still need work. She glanced briefly toward Dr. Moore, who was standing beside Claire. Dr. Moore nodded. Vivian looked back at me. And because I want to spend the rest of my life giving you reasons to come home. I had imagined this moment after she first tore up the divorce papers. I had expected satisfaction, maybe triumph. Instead, I felt only love, messy, earned, freely chosen. I reached down and touched her face. Yes. Vivian closed her eyes. I smiled through the pressure in my throat. Yes, I'll marry you again. The room erupted. My sister clapped while crying. Daniel shouted something about finally ending the London debate. Nora called, "Make him sign nothing." Vivian laughed. Then she stood and placed the new ring on my finger beside the original wedding band. I looked down. 2 rings. The first represents our history, and the second, our choice. That sounds suspiciously symbolic. I read several articles. Of course, I pulled her close. Before I kissed her, I whispered, "You know you could have done this privately." Yes. You hate public vulnerability. Yes. Then why here? Vivian looked around the room. Because I hid you for 3 years while pretending our marriage was public. My chest tightened again. I wanted everyone we loved to see me choose you. That answer was better than any proposal speech. I kissed her. No photographers. No contract. No role to perform. The people around us cheered. Vivian wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me back without caring who watched. Later that night, after the guests left, we stood alone in the penthouse kitchen. Vivian removed her heels and placed them beside the counter. I loosened my tie. The glass penguin sat on the windowsill. The roses she had given me months earlier were gone, but one dried flower remained inside a small frame Mrs. Alvarez had placed near the coffee machine. Vivian noticed me looking at it. She kept one. She keeps everything. Vivian leaned against the counter. So do I. I looked at the 2 rings on my hand. You planned this for how long? 6 weeks. You kept a secret for 6 weeks? It was difficult. You almost told me twice. How do you know? You asked whether I preferred platinum or white gold during breakfast. That was a general question. You also measured my finger while I was sleeping. I used string. I woke up. You pretended not to. I wanted to see what you were doing. Vivian looked embarrassed. I laughed and moved closer. You did well. The proposal? All of it. Her expression softened. Do you mean that? Yes. I still make mistakes. So do I. I still hate the Boston apartment. The lease ended. I know. I counted the days. You still try to control things when you're scared. I know. I still hide inside jokes when I'm hurt. I know that too. I placed my hands on her waist. We're not fixed. I dislike that word now. Good. We're building, she said. That one works. Vivian rested her hands against my chest. When should we hold the second wedding? I thought this was the second wedding. That was a proposal. We're already legally married. I want vows. We said vows the first time. They were generic. You approved them. I was distracted. By what? You. I smiled. Vivian continued. I want vows we write ourselves. No lawyers. No lawyers. No clauses. No clauses. No 14-page speech. She hesitated. Vivian. Fine. We held the ceremony 6 weeks later in Vermont, at the same diner where Vivian had once eaten pancakes during a snowstorm. She claimed the location had sentimental value. I suspected she simply wanted an excuse to pour maple syrup on bacon without judgment. There were 20 guests. No press. No corporate sponsors. No board members. Vivian wore a simple white dress and comfortable shoes. I checked. Claire stood beside her. Daniel stood beside me. Nora brought chili as a wedding gift. Mrs. Alvarez cried through the entire ceremony. We wrote our own vows. Mine were short. Vivian, I spent 3 years loving you as though patience alone could make me brave. It couldn't. You taught me that staying silent is not the same as being loyal. Today, I promise to tell you what I need, to build a life that is mine and still share it with you, and to keep choosing home wherever we happen to be. Vivian stared at me with tears already forming. Then she unfolded several pages. I looked at Claire. Claire shook her head. I cut it down. Vivian said, "How many pages?" 4. Everyone laughed. Vivian ignored them. Her vows were not polished. That was what made them perfect. Ethan, before you, I believed love was something people used to gain access, influence, or control. You loved me without asking for any of those things. And I was so frightened that I tried to make your love predictable. Her voice shook. I cannot promise I will never be afraid. I can promise I will not hide fear inside contracts. I will ask instead of assume. I will listen when you say no. I will remember that your freedom is not a threat to our marriage. She looked down briefly, and I promised to learn how to make coffee. I laughed. That may be unrealistic. I practiced. You nearly damaged the machine. That was once. Twice. Vivian gave me a warning look. Then she smiled. Most importantly, I promise that home will never again mean a place where you are required to stay. It will mean the place where you are always free to return. There was nothing I could add to that. We exchanged the rings we already wore. Then we kissed. Not for photographs. Not because an officiant instructed us to. Because neither of us wanted to wait. Months later, someone at a foundation dinner asked how we met. Vivian and I looked at each other. The official version was easy. We worked together. We respected each other. A family trust created unusual circumstances. The truth was more embarrassing. Vivian answered first. He challenged one of my decisions in an email. I was nearly fired. You were never nearly fired. You drafted the letter. I did not send it. Romantic. She ignored me. Then I offered him a contract marriage and put a clause in it prohibiting love. That was poorly considered. Very. The woman listening laughed. So when did it become real? Vivian looked toward me. I thought about the elevator, the Seattle hallway, coffee every morning, separate rooms, torn divorce papers, roses in a cooking pot, a bare hat beside the river. The night she said come home without trying to force the answer. It was always real. I said. Vivian's hand found mine beneath the table. We were simply the last people to understand it. She smiled. Not the controlled public smile everyone expected from the Ice Queen. The private one. Mine. Then she leaned toward me. You forgot something. What? You should tell her how the story ends. I looked at the woman across from us. My contract wife tore up our divorce papers. Vivian corrected me. Your wife. My wife, I said, squeezing her hand, asked me to come home. And did you? I turned toward Vivian. She was wearing both rings. So was I. Yes. I kissed her before she could add another correction. And this time, I stayed.